Are we live? Hey, we're live. I just remembered to turn my watch page off. Ah! Anyway, good evening, everybody. Everybody in the chat room, everybody that's watching. Today is Sunday, the November 2017. And with us on the panel today, we have UK, Holland, we have Angel from America, and we have Artis from Germany. So hello everybody.
Hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
And I just wanted to say hello, Patricia. I just wanted to say a couple of things. We had a bit of a problem with the Hangout yesterday. About 6 o'clock last night, finished rendering an hour ago. The whole thing was stuck, and it had a live Hangout on it and everything. So it's a bit bizarre, really. But anyway, about an hour ago, it rendered itself. So that is good. And I just wanted to say that our subscription now, we've made 2,000 subscriptions. So I'm really about that, and we're growing, and it's brilliant. Well done to everybody who's signed up to Sun and Moon and who's watching. So that's really, really good. And we're really happy, me and Ceres. Anyway, it's over to Artis.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Yeah, very great that you have a lot of subscribers. You deserve it.
Oh, we're all in this together.
Yeah, that's right. You have great people here in the Sun and Moon group.
That includes you, Angel, Ceres, Patricia, and everybody else who comes on our panel.
Indeed, everybody else.
Mentioning you then, Artis.
Yeah, I'm first going to do a little bit of introduction about monolithic sites and what my conclusion is about them. And then I'm going to talk about another subject that is very interesting. That Stonehenge is basically built 100%. So to me, it's not even a monolithic structure anymore, but just a site that they used maybe old stones for. But first, I'm going to talk about something else. Is my screen already sharing, Karen?
Yes, yeah, you're sharing.
Okay, all right, that's cool. Here you can see Olante Tambo, and you can clearly see this is in Bolivia. And you can clearly see this is Inca-built structures, and in front of them, over here, you can see here are some pieces that they don't know what to do with. They put 4 or 5 of them here on that sidewalk. And that's all. Those are very straight stones with very straight angles, all done with ancient high technology because they are level, they are magnetic. You can see this wall in front is from that same time period. Stones fitting together like a jigsaw puzzle. Not one stone is the same size, but still they fit perfectly on top of each other. You can't put a credit card between them. Also above that, with those windows where the people are walking in front of. This is all Inca. So this is all Inca, very clear. This is smaller stones, like the size of a normal brick, about that size. And they use cement and mortar between them. You can see a close-up of those former lithic stones that are very straight, and I still don't know where they were used for. It's a big mystery, but they are predating the Inca civilization. Over here, I'm going to zoom in so I can point it out. This is on the left side. This pre-Inca, this predates the Inca civilization, those constructions. And you can see the Inca tried to repair it over here with smaller stones to make sure that it was actually repaired. I found a very large picture, it was very handy. Over here you can see those holes that look like windows, but there aren't because this mountain is behind it. And if you sing or play a flat E in them, this whole wall starts to resonate for a very long time. So this is, you see those knobs, still don't know where they were used for because they are random everywhere. Here's just one, here are a couple. Very straight doorway that can easily fit, if you put a block here on top, it easily can fit a person about 2 meters high, because if you look at this woman over here, she's about here. So there could be walking a larger person to those doors. So they were made for larger persons. You can also see that over here. This person goes about here. So the doorway is much larger. And you can clearly see the difference in the building construction on the right, with the smaller stones with mortar cement between them. They are Inca built. You can clearly see these are all Inca built structures. And on the left, you can clearly see those stones that fit together like a jigsaw puzzle. And those are pre-Inca dating, very, very clear. I couldn't find. And what is even more interesting, on top, you have even bigger stones, also with bigger knobs on them. Maybe they even predate this. You never know. You can also see what I often tell, but you can actually see here stones that are fallen off over here, over there, in the valley, all kinds of stones here. You can see it's all fallen off and broken off. So at one time they all stood on top of this mountain with this very ancient melithic stones. Here you can see a close-up. You can see they tried to repair this construction with smaller stones or add things to them with smaller stones. Here you can see those, the doorway I pointed out. It's just large enough to fit a person from about 2 meters high. So they were possibly the same size or even larger than we are today. Here you have those holes. If you put your head in them and you sing a flat E or play a flat E with an instrument or your mobile phone, this whole structure starts to resonate. So it's very clear they knew about frequency. Also, most of these stones are magnetic. If you put the compens on them, the needle starts turning all around, all different points. So it's also magnetic. You can here see very close up of the structure. For people who are interested in that, you can see this is an almost like a T shape upside down. And this is so tight fitting. I was happy to find this picture that is very big, so you can clearly see how precise this is built. It's amazing the skill they had before the Inca civilization to build these structures. Here you have another structure. This is in near the city of Cusco in Peru. It's Piquilaquita. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong. You can clearly see stones with knobs on them, just like the previous structure. And you can see they added the Inca civilization. This is all Inca built, very clear. Because all the other buildings of the Incas used the same type of building, the same type of size of stones, and cement and mortar between them. And this is predating the Inca civilization. You see they tried to repair this, to make this structure like it probably once was. So they probably had still some knowledge of maybe what this was used for. Just to point out that in Peru, that's not the only country that they use those big stones. Here, this is in
big stone.
Yeah, this is in Baalbek in Italy. You can clearly see that stone on the bottom is very smooth, smoother than all the stones around it. This is texture. This is texture. This is a lot of texture with gaps between them. And this stone and those four, those even have a really, but this one has the smoothest surface, very, very smooth. And it's big because it goes on beyond this staircase. You can clearly see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes. And this holes is very near that staircase. So possibly there are more holes behind this staircase. And this staircase was built here in a later time.
Yeah, it looks different, doesn't it? It looks different stone.
Also different stone. Yeah, those look a little bit the same. But yeah, maybe it's convenient because they could quarry the stone on the nearby side. But this stone is so big and it's also very wide. This stone is about as deep as those staircases. And it goes on beyond this picture. So this probably weighs about 100 tons. And the Romans couldn't move those type of blocks that big. So this is predating this Roman structure in Baalbek. To point out that it's all over the place. This is the Horizon Temple in Egypt. And you can clearly see again very straight rectangular stones put together very tight. You can also see here knobs. If you look very close, I will make it a bit bigger here. They made a knob and a cutout in the stone so they can put it together like Lego. See, this fits perfectly. Here you have another one that fits perfectly. Again, not one stone in this wall behind it is the same, all different shapes. Also with some types of knobs, just like in Peru and Bolivia I showed before. And the newer constructions are again with smaller stones, all smaller stones. Only the older structure is again with very big stones, very smooth, also very level. I don't know if those are magnetic, but it wouldn't surprise me if they are. So even in Egypt, Italy, Peru, you have all these very old monolithic structures. There's nothing known about it, only suggestions. Often they say, yeah, it's from the Egypt civilization, or they say, yeah, this is Roman. It can't be because Romans couldn't lift those big stones. It's very clear. Here you have another structure in Pumapunku, Peru. You can see three types of building construction. No, two types of building construction. Very big stones. I put a red line around them. Those are the very big stones. And they added smaller stones later on to the structure. Very clear, because so see these surfaces are very have a very strange surface. Here you can see, yeah, some strange round shapes. You see very light rectangular shapes. You also inverted rectangular shapes. Those are sticking out. Those are inverted. So maybe this piece of stone could fit over here. You never know. Wouldn't surprise me. But they added smaller stones later on to this structure. So again, this is the back side. Again, I put a red line around those bigger stones. You can see here in the right, the later Inca.
Wow.
Those are very big stones. And you can clearly see big stones, smaller stones added. Another even smaller stones. Those are Inca. Those are predating the Inca. And those are predating that structure. So you have three time periods. Big stones, but other kind of big stones. And you can see probably a broken off a piece. And then you have those Inca stones that are not that big. You could lift them easily. They weigh about 2 bricks or 3 bricks. And here you have another side of this structure. Again, you can see big stones fitting together very tight, like a jigsaw puzzle. Again, some inverted T-shape over here. And here you have another one. And those ones aren't blocked off. Those are like windows. And you can see they tried to to repair it with smaller stones, but they didn't do a great job because you have. And here on top, they also tried to pair it with smaller stones, put them back in the, tried to make the structure as it once was. And here you can see some Inca structures that are all built like Inca structures all together. So these are Inca structures. Also, the history tells about this, that these are Inca structures, and there is no history about this. Most of the tour guides will tell you that this is also Inca, but it clearly isn't. You can see it for yourself. if this is Inca and this is Inca, this is predating the Inca because they built on top of it and around it. Here you have another site in Peru. I won't pronounce it. Yeah, I tried to pronounce it. Sacsayhuaman near Cusco, Peru. Near the city of Cusco, you can see it in the background. And again, big stones, fitting T-shaped stones, fitted together like a jigsaw puzzle. Not one stone is the same size, all different sizes. And they Incas added smaller stones to the construction, very clear. I can zoom in. So you can, there's a little bit too much zoom maybe. Dial it back a notch. Yeah. You can clearly see they added those stones on top of them to reconstruct the old place, the old site. Here you have one in the same thing. This is in Timors in Spain. You can see big stones. Yeah. I will circle it with my arrow. This is big stones, very big stones. They put in smaller stones, building blocks between them. Very clear. And this, what is very striking to me, this one in Spain looks a lot like this one in Bolivia. In Timanacu. Yes, Timanacu in Bolivia. You can see big stones. They put in smaller stones between them in a later time period. Also, those faces, as Angel pointed out last time, were very interesting because they from all kinds of races, basically. What did you say about that, Angel, again?
I'm sorry, I lost. Oh, the heads? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
There are, I think, 180-ish of them, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, about that.
And they all represent different dialects, different ethnicities of civilizations found on the planet. They also include, from my understanding, there's a picture of a gray, and there's a picture of the light bulb shaped head guy, which is two different common alien like shapes. It's just a weird thing that these guys have the back in those days were using these same, if they are fictitious, characters. It's like if you had a snowman and everyone used the same exact 3 balls for the snowman. It's like, wow, somebody thousands of years ago was using the exact same icon as we do today. So it puts some credence to them possibly not being so alien. Maybe they're south of Antarctica or something.
Yeah, that's a possibility indeed. Thank you for that, Angel. Well, yeah, you put them side by side so you can see the comparison, that they very much look alike. They even use the same type of sandstone, some kind of sandstone. You can clearly see they have bigger stones. If you take away all those fillings in between, you get a more shape like Stonehenge. If you extract all those building blocks between them, you end up with a form like Stonehenge. Here I lined the bigger stones. So if you those are the oldest part of the structure, and they built between them with, again, smaller stones. So if you take away all those small stones, you end up with an monolithic structure, just like they are in England. What I also want to point out, but I also already did that, this one is in Peru. That's ancient staircase. As you can clearly see, if you look at the one in Spain, those two look very much alike. If you put them side by side, small staircase on the left, bigger staircase on the right, very, very clear. The same technology is used in Spain on the right and on the left in Peru. Here I pointed out the staircases for everybody so they can clearly see what I'm pointing out. And this is also was very great to see that the last video of Brian Forrester is also talking about this. And he comes to the same conclusion as I is. So that's very great to see that other people that are very knowledgeable about those sites. Brian Forrester is one of the leading person in talking and telling about those ancient sites. So yeah, he's one has great knowledge, and he actually visits the site himself, so he can clearly see what he's talking about, and he's on the site, so he can measure everything. He comes to the conclusion that this is possibly a test site to test the ancient tools they used to try out what they were used for. And I also talked about that last week, I believe. And Brian Forrester is coming to the same conclusion as I have. So it's very great that more people are seeing it like I am seeing it. This is to comparison, this is in Peru. And the same type of thing you can see in Italy. Also scoops out of the stones, and it looks like they could do it very easily. This is called, it's a 7 seat plateau. And this is near the Acropolis in Italy. Same type of technology. This is another staircase. So you can see this is also near the Sphinx in Italy. This is also near Acropolis. Another staircase. And if you go to Spain, you have the same type of staircase going up, and this one is going down. So there were all staircases going up to something. You can see here is something broken off. So maybe there was a statue, or maybe there was something else that broke off. And you can clearly see here's also it's broken off. And this is also some type of staircase with something still on it, but it's also broken off. This should be longer, so we don't know what this is. You can clearly see there's all pieces missing, broken off over here. This whole side, it's cracked. So there was probably a big cataclysm all over the world that broke these stones off, even put them upside down. This is in near again in the things in Athens, in Italy. And if you compare that one with this one in Peru, you can clearly see the similarity if you put them side by side, year for year. I lined it with red. You can see over here, this looks like a sofa or a staircase, a small staircase. And on the left, you can see a piece sticking out, like an armrest, maybe. Over here, you have the same. And on the right side, you have a doorway. Here, on the right side, you also have a doorway. And this structure on the right is in Peru. And on the left, it's in Italy. So it's thousands of miles apart from each other. You can clearly see this blue umlined piece. It's also the same shape, like an armrest between those, or a wall between those structures. Also on the angle down. This is also on the same angle down. Very much the same all over the world with the same technology. What I'm going to talk about next is a little bit off the scale, maybe for some people. You know these H blocks in
Artist,
yeah.
Artist, we could ask Angel what he thought about all those. Angel, what did you think about what he thought of what Artist just showed you?
See, I can't like enforce it, but I'd say that somehow I think that these are, when we, I don't know how exactly to put it. Karl Monk has what he calls the code. And it is where physical structures can be broken down to read them as mathematical equations. Now, not every structure fits into the code, but when I see things like this, I kind of try to see it in a way that, like, could it be broken down into a mathematical equation? And sometimes some of the structures can, and that sometimes relays information. But I do agree that they are not of what we would like to call the time period. And I'd probably like to say that when we do some research on there, we'll find that these are more poured than chiseled and cut, although they may also be melted out. But because of how their shapes are so square, I think they're more poured. And even on the one you're looking at right now, the bottom, the right picture on the bottom kind of looks like there was a patch or something put into there in one or two spots, like maybe it had cracked and they poured another casting to fill some cracks. Or that could just be the way the rock looks naturally. I mean, this is just me speculating, but that's just how I see it. Either way, it does show that it's far above what we were told the knowledge and skill that they had.
Yes. Something doesn't add up, does it?
Yeah, I also have that in my mind that it actually could be poured, because sometimes it looks very poured. And indeed, they have the same technology all over the world. This is in Italy, this is in Spain. Sorry, this is in Italy, this is in Peru on the left. But I want to talk about nets. Maybe you can, if I finish the little talk about this particular part, you can also share your thoughts on it, Angel. But I think you know those 8 blocks in Pumapunca in Bolivia. Probably you know them. And what I think here, there's another one. You can see on top of here, there could be a construction piece to lock another stones on this stone. Very clear. Well, yeah.
There are also some that look very similar to those that are found. You know that T-shaped dugout we were looking at 2-3 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
And how there's a sister to it north of the Giza pyramid?
Yep.
There are some of those H-shaped blocks that they moved. I believe they moved them up towards that pyramid as well, you know, kind of away from the Giza complex itself to the off-site, you know, out of sight, out of mind. But they look very, very similar to what you had on your screen a few minutes ago.
Yeah, indeed. Exactly. They look very much alike. So you can see clearly that all over the world they used the same type of technology. But what I think maybe, because here is a hole, and you can fit another piece with this cutout, you can lock another piece to this piece. Maybe a piece like this or another piece. There are a lot of pieces around. But what I think maybe, because you were talking about pouring stones, here you have a hole, you can easily put liquid or cement, pour cement in through this. And you maybe end up with this. Because this looks very poor to me. Or maybe it's plastered, I don't know for sure. But this could be poured with these kinds of stones. Yeah, because you have all kinds of shapes. And most of them have the shape. So this could be put on top of this. Or you can put something under it. It's all like a pouring mold. If you, I don't know if some people are familiar with pouring gold or silver. You also use sand or stones to pour liquid silver or gold. Because I did an education of goldsmith and also poured myself some rings and other metals to make nice jewelry. So what I think that these stone and other stones at Pumapunca were used for pouring this kind of structures. And this is on the Isla de la Luna on Lake Titicaca, Bolivia. so that's not far away. So maybe they use this for pouring this. What do you think, Angel?
Are they of, is the scale of the right size that would actually fit? I mean, yes, I believe that they could pour these things, but if those molds fit into there, then that would be kind of a black and white thing. But
well, I can't measure it very precise, but what I measured as good as possible is for 90% they fit.
Well, then,
and I know, yeah.
I do also like how you pointed out those little grooves, because that's what you see on the bottom of like large conference tables and stuff. How they'll put them together, and those grooves right there. How they'll put them together with the nut bolts to join them. So that does really show that it could have been used as a, to clamp down to do molds and stuff, and that would be big chunks to be huge ingots of gold. But I do believe that they could easily pour rocks and stuff, pour other constructions.
Yeah, I use the same ones, of course, very small to pour jewelry, and this indeed could be used for pouring stones. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to use when I did model railroad, I would pour my own castings of the frame and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, that was my what I thought was this is maybe used for. I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna do now another presentation. So this is the first part. If you
thank you, artist.
The next part is gonna be even more interesting.
Woohoo!
Yeah, and I had done my homework.
Anyway, just to let everybody know, Artist has gone and looked up all this himself, just to let everybody know. Well, I suppose Angel does the same thing. But anyway, carry on, Artist.
Yeah, I look up everything I looked up myself, and I always double check and double check and double check if I'm on the right track, because I'm going to show you the next photo, and that's very funny to see. Can you see this? Probably can. On the right, on the left side,
ooh,
this was in the news about a year ago. And even on the BBC News, they have found, you can see it on the left here, a big chunk of stone in the mountains of Russia. And well, here they put in a small person, they photoshopped it, because this is in that site I showed before in Bolivia. This it's Ollantaytambo in Peru. Sorry for that. And you can clearly see the same type here. You have rectangular, some things that are worn a bit. Here, same rectangular.
That's the same rock.
That's the same rock, exactly. And on the left,
even the rocks down on the bottom there. Those are the same.
Yeah.
Those are the same rocks. So you're right. Somebody photoshopped somebody in there to scale it and make it look different. But that's the same rock.
Yeah, and in the BBC, even on the BBC, last year they showed this photo. They found a new structure in the Russian mountains. And I already thought, I know this stone. I know this stone. I've seen it somewhere. Yeah, I've seen it here in Peru. Because is it a big stone? So that's why I always look at stones and I try to get as much pictures as possible of one particular site, often 20 photos, 40 photos, to make sure that it's actually real. Because if you don't do that, you end up with this kind of fakery. So that's why I always tell everybody, do your research, watch more photos to make sure. Because this photo is the only photo. They showed it on the BBC News, in the newspaper, the same photo. And then I think already, well, this is
It
strange.
proves they don't do their research then, artists.
No, they don't. They just take over from another news media and
Count on the
say the
availability
same thing.
of us. They just count on it. And the masses just dig it. The belief in authority being actually a truth teller.
Yeah. That's the problem. They count on it indeed, the series, that you don't do your research. And then you end up with this kind of stupidity that is Photoshop. So you can see that the photo quality is very bad. And they could have done a better job, I think. If it is very easy with Photoshop to get rid of those stones and get rid of this knob and make this stone a little bit higher. I can easily Photoshop this photo in about half an hour and then it looks completely different. So they even did a very bad job of making this look bigger. It's ridiculous. And the whole news media talked about it and they didn't do a research. Often they don't do. That's an introduction for the next thing I'm going to talk about, because people don't do their research. It's very saddening at sometimes, but it's like that sometimes. So the next thing I was going to talk about is Stonehenge. We're going to first show you. This is
Yes, Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. Yeah.
Yes, artist is going to show you something different now.
Yeah, this is going to be something interesting. This is the site of Stonehenge. Let's take that in for a moment. Because I'm going to read the text now I've written to actually get it as right as possible. Because if I make a mistake, maybe some other people are stating, yeah, you're wrong. On the Wikipedia, they stated Stonehenge was raised between 2200 BC and 3000 BC. I don't know how they do that kind of dating. Because if you carbon date a stone, you get the date of the stone being formed. Never the site date, not even a million years. I think it's also a broad estimate, 22 to 1000 BC. Very broad indeed. And how can you date any kind of racing? It's like dating your living room with furniture in. Yeah, it's possibly 1 to 1,000 years old, that living room. It's ridiculous because if you can carbon date a stone, it's very hard to carbon date a stone. If it is even possible, and you can, if you date them and the stones are very old, you get the date of the stone and not the date of the structure. It's ridiculous that they actually make people believe that if you date the stone, you have the site date of that structure. It isn't, because you can if you don't carbon date the stone, you get the date of the stone. The oldest picture I could find of that was even a drawn picture, a drawing, was about 1700, and not BC, after Christ. And they rebuilt Stonehenge a couple of times in 1898, in 1920 till 1922, in 1955, and in early 1960s. And then so there is no real proof of this being real, a real ancient structure, and it has been tampered with so many times. So therefore, this structure is even not even built on the same site, rebuilt on the same site, because clearly in this photo you can see there's nothing there. They extracted the stones, maybe put it on a pile, then they put markers down, and they put the stone back. There were a lot of archaeologists that were very mad about this because they moved stones around. It's even in written text that they some stones they even moved about a couple of meters around. So this site is so tampered with many times in the past. It's probably not even on original location. Now you can't even you can go to this site, but you can't touch the stones. It's not allowed anymore. And here you can show some pictures. This is Stonehenge without the stones. Very beautiful. And here they are building Stonehenge in 1950, rebuilding Stonehenge in 1954. Here you see that fence in the background. And then if we move our pictures back, this is the same fence. So where's Stonehenge? It's gone. They lie about everything. Here they are putting the stones in place. In that fence, the other fence to move the stones. So it's very strange, in my opinion, that they moved all around. Here they're putting stones on top of each other. There were also most stones that they put on top of other stones. They probably don't even know for sure that they go on top of these stones. I don't know why they did it. Maybe to make the site more interesting. You can see those are cranes moving the stones all around on this site. So this was a big building site. Here they put a stone aside in a wooden construction to lift it. Here this is concrete. So they put in the stone in a concrete base. And they put concrete over it and then earth. So all the stones on Stonehenge, the most of them, I'm for sure, are put in concrete and not standing on the same side. Here he's excavating something. They even can see that they put the stones on the location. And this is also done in the 1922. This is in 1954, but they also did it in 1922, and in 1920, and in 1889. So they did a couple of times. Here you can see they have put some blocks in place. Here they are constructing the whole site again. So they did some repairs with some wedges between them to lock the stones back again because it was broken off. But they didn't even do it carefully. Here you can see the building site of Stonehenge, lifting the stones, digging holes for the stones to. Maybe they also did some research in the ground if they could find artifacts, probably. And over here you can see they are lowering the stones back into place. And this stone is going to be in this location. So why would you lift up this stone, remove it from the side, dig a hole and put it back again? Sorry, but that doesn't add up for me. That really doesn't. Again, they are... And here is the mixture, pre-mixed. This is a well-known mixture of cement. So they are pouring cement to make sure that those stones keep in the same place. And this is done many times over at Stonehenge. They measured here, those are the ridges. So this is probably what it originally looked like. Stones lying on the ground. Like a big pile of stones. And they all raised them up and put them on top of each other. But I don't know. I think this is here. Here's the concrete. And it's all concrete baits with beams between them. They worked all night to make sure that it was finished as soon as possible. So nobody could... Here they are, the opening with the Druids. Yeah, we built Stonehenge again. With the Druids doing their ceremony like they did many...
They've lied again. Angel, what do you think about this?
Here.
I'm kind of a little bit awestruck here. I mean, that's extraordinarily deceptive. Really extraordinarily deceptive.
It just ruins everything, doesn't it, really? Like, no one noticed in the 50s or whatever it was, they were ploughing these stones up. Oh,
Well,
yeah, it's
no,
ancient method.
This is an easy thing to do. I've seen it done within my own lifetime where you change something, and then as long as you keep saying, no, this is the way it's always been, within, as the children grow up, this is the way it's always been. I mean, honestly,
don't
you want
forget,
I can show you.
there.
I can show you a really great
those
example.
stones.
You need only one generation.
This is the way it's always been. Even though, it was pointed out recently that, what was it? There was articles even in as little as 100 years ago where it was heresy to, talk about the globe. And yet we do it.
You know about that because Angel Artist did that last weekend. He might have done it the week before as well, actually, but he repeated the fact that those articles were there and that this guy was trying to get people to prison for believing in a ball. But that's the 1900s. Like, that's not 400 years ago.
Right. So this battle.
That particular issue was about somebody who actually discovered that it was in the law.
Right. Yeah. This battle wasn't settled
still in the law,
in
but they
1492.
weren't already teaching the ball, apparently. But somebody figured out it was still in the law, and that caused him to actually put a case on. And that became a news article.
Oh, there's
So,
deeper story to it.
Yeah.
Well, it's still all I'm pointing out is it hasn't been a decided thing. It's always been an area of discussion, just like I'll say 9/11. It's not a done deal. Oh, that was decided. 2 planes took down 3 buildings. Nothing more to see here. It's not a closed case, and they like to make you think it is. That way, it's a closed case. Hey, Stonehenge, yeah, it's been here, 4,000 years. Yay! We just built it like, half a century ago. No. Been there always. Yeah. I grew up. It was here. It was here when I grew up. Yep. It's always been there. Just like that pile of dirt in my backyard. That's just a pile of dirt. The pile of dirt in the backyard's a pile of dirt. But Stonehenge, now I'm bugging. That's bugging me.
Yeah, and it's not even the most interesting site in the UK.
But
because I can show you another structure that is tampered with.
Right.
Was never tampered with.
It's what they draw your attention to. I think the more I understand the bigger thing, it's a look over here, look over here, look over here. So you don't pay attention to the big pile of dirt that's been there for 1,000 years that is actually more important than the I know now fabricated Stonehenge.
Yeah.
What we're looking at actually older and real?
This is real, and I've done some research. You type in this name, Cavendish Stone Circle on the Isles of Lewis in the UK. And this site is never tampered with. I couldn't find on those newspapers that they did raise the stones or other things that they moved the stones. This site is in its original state. Also, there are ancient stories about this site that giants lived in this place, some ancient stories, and you can believe them or not. And they actually did their rituals. Also, this looks a little bit like if an upside down Celtic cross, just how you look at it.
Well, how does it fit to the cardinal directions, and how does it fit to like
I'm going to show you
equinox and stuff like that?
Let's do. If I actually have that one, where is it? I had it. It's well, I'm gonna tell you. If you put it up on Google Earth, but by Google Earth isn't working. This is almost exactly north, and this is almost exactly east to west. So this goes. If you put this line, it has a little bit of an angle on it. You can see it wobbles a little bit, but it's basically this is south, this is north, this is west, and this is east. And also, this is built on the star signs, because certain stars, if you have this big one in the middle, I'm going to show you this one, big one in the middle, all these stones around it at a certain point in time relate to stars in the skies. So this is probably was used for pointing out stars in the skies. That's why it's probably has so many stones. So this is not like Stonehenge. Stonehenge is more related to the sun, but this one is related to the stars in the skies. Some people did research about it. I have to find out a little more about it, but it basically is telling they relate to certain stars in the star signs in the sky at certain dates.
Yeah, I wonder what you can see when you actually kind of draw all these lines in a bigger scale on how the world itself is formed.
Yeah.
And if you can see some overlapping in all kinds of fields.
Yeah. You can see though these stones are put in the ground very good because you can sit on them. If you do this with Stonehenge, before they poured it in on concrete, it would fall over. So poorly, Stonehenge is built very poorly, with not very great craftsmanship, in my opinion, because the stones are falling down. This structure has been around for many decades, and it's very strong. And you know, as I showed before, the old Neolithic builders built very strong. They built stones and stones on top of each other that would last forever almost. So that's also an indication that Stonehenge is probably maybe only 400 years old, because it's built very poorly. And other Neolithic structures like this one in the UK, Calendish
I
Stone
must admit,
Circle.
artists, I did see that one on Facebook myself, I don't know, months ago, with them saying that that it was a lie, but then you just carry on because it's just one post.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've gone and looked and it's all fake. Can't believe it.
This one isn't. So you can still go to the UK and see
That one, the other one.
great Neolithic site. And there won't be a lot of people over here because this site isn't well known. So that's also convenient because a lot of people don't go to this site, and this is actually a real Neolithic structure site.
Oh, so not many people go there to that one then?
No. It was very hard to find actually people on a picture. You can see clearly this is a mom and dad with maybe the granddad and the
real ones nobody knows.
The real ones, yeah, that's what Angel pointed out perfectly. Look over here, then we can hide this one.
Awful, isn't it? That they could still, everything just ends up being lie upon lie upon lie upon lie.
Mm-hmm. That's why I always say to everybody, do your research. Even if I tell about something, I've done a lot of research, but maybe I could be off about a certain small thing. I'm always happy to hear it, but till now I'm I'm right. And always do your own research. Don't believe everything somebody else tells you. Always do your own research so you can find out if it's actually the truth. I encourage everybody, do your own research. Please do it.
Biblically, it was simply said, prove everything, keep what is good and refrain from evil. But that particular prove everything is not towards anyone else but yourself. Prove it to yourself.
Indeed. So, does anybody else
Angel, do you have anything else to say to that one, or have you already said it?
Well, I do think I am more and more of the belief that we are purposely put on the calendar we're on so that they could do things like hide a few hundred years. Because if they just change the date for some reason, they could say, oh, now we're going to go with the UN calendar because the president of the UN has decided this calendar is better, and it gets rid of the time change, and it gets rid of daylight savings, and it does all this other stuff, you know, and here is this new calendar. And we get sucked into some new calendar, and you lose track of no way to tie things. You lose a consistency, which is where more and more there's actually a guy that wrote a book. It's Chronological Gospels. But what he points out is in the Bible, they pay attention to, like, you know, red moon here, this happened, that happened, this star was in the sky there, this planet was over here. Because you can take one of your astrological programs and go back in time and find out when exactly that was, because of the series of events that occurred can only be so many times. Well, it was either 800 years ago or it was 10,600 years ago. Well, 10,600 is a bit extreme, so let's go with the 800, you know. So, and if you throw another variable, plus Neptune was over here, bam, now you have another variable. And what I'd like to point out is that Archimedes, not the Archimedes drill, the Antikythera device. When you look at the gearing within the Antikythera device, most of the gearing in there, now the bit about being prime numbers is, if I'm just going to say Neptune, but because they don't use Neptunes, they only, I think, use the first Jupiter and lower, closer of the planets, the movable stars as they're called in the Bible. But let's say Neptune is only in that position once every 53 years. Well, since that's an odd number, it can't be there the same time the moon does this and this, because these are odd numbers. So the chance of them lining up is less and less, so that when you use some of these events, it makes the time lapse of things being a consecutive pattern less and less, because it's all prime numbers. So, or most of them are prime numbers. I think all of them, but if not most of them. And that just makes me think that the stars were designed to be used as our true calendar, as the way it's referenced in the Bible. And we are moving further and further away from using the stars and more towards it's the Antikythera device, and more towards a calendar, which, you know, came about in the 1500s, the same time we decided the Earth was there, and the same time that the church decided it's okay to start charging interest. I believe they were compromised by the money changers, and hence that started us on a downhill spiral to move us as far away from the teaching of the Bible as possible, and as far into this fictitious world where now I can decide that I sexually feel like a frog today. And since frogs are bisexual, hey, I could have all sorts of fun. So we are skewing and warping our reality so that you are so, even if your mind is right, you are so
Spider's web.
untouched, untangible, unconnected with the world you live in, on or around your environment, that when you walk up to somebody and say, hey, that's a bright light in the sky, and I notice it comes about around once a day. Oh, no. In the morning they turn it on, and at night they turn it off, because that's what it says here in Wikipedia.
Golly.
Great.
It is getting
Me
to
and
the
Ceres
point.
shaking our heads. No.
No. Authority tells something else.
Yeah, they tell it on.
Bullshit. Every time again. Eh? Yeah, you're good.
I think sometimes even they are testing us, like how many people will actually see that that what we are telling is bullshit, to look how many people we can trick or not.
Yeah, the problem is if we're all consistently using the bullshit way,
Yeah.
and we look at it like Sunday, okay? Most people say Sunday is the day of rest.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I believe it's Saturday, the Sabbath day, the Seder day. And it is the Roman Catholic Church that just recently this year, 2017, said, oh, by the way, if you are celebrating on Sunday, that is our day, because we decided to celebrate on Sunday and worship the sun. Mm-hmm. What it says not to do in the Bible. And so we are kind of being herded down the sun worshiping world, as opposed to paying attention to telling calendars and stuff by celestial bodies, so that we really can't lose track of time. You know, if Halley's Comet only comes by once every 73 years, and you say it was 2 years after Halley's Comet, and 1 year after Pisces was it at our North Star or whatever, then you've set a time in history where it can only be so many things, where now it was 1947. Okay. And when was the Christ thing? Oh, about 2,000 years ago, give or take. We're not quite sure. There's some variances here,
But isn't it annoying then for people like you and artists, when you're so into the history and wanting to know all this stuff, you think, well, is that real then? Did that really put there thousands of years ago? Is it only 50 years?
The Stonehenge thing really kind of bothers me, because that is a key piece of a puzzle that I've been working with, and if it's completely fabricated, then it's a fictitious piece. It's a red herring that I've been playing with. If it is a recreated thing from stories and stuff, or maybe the true Masons and Templars, they actually know what it should have looked like because they actually know the code, and maybe they did recreate it because especially since they were doing their little song and dance there thing, it is possible that they did recreate it in the likeness of what it should have been.
Well, I've got one thing for you. At least they stuck it on a ley line rather. At least they stuck it on a ley line.
See that?
Yeah, of course they are smart. They are smart enough. Those druids are also smart enough and have the knowledge, and probably even have the blueprints of the structure.
Right. That's why I'm saying they may have actually recreated it in its likeness, because I do believe that when you get up to in the the 30s of the Mason level, you kind of do get to learn some of the secrets, and sometimes you want to mark your territory. Mm-hmm. And say like, hey, we're just going to rebuild it, and we're going to do our own little song and dance, and this way we can have our own little worship thing in our backyard, and it fits the whole world code, the whole
because
system.
Because Stonehenge, I believe, in 1890, around that time period, or maybe even later, it was a private-owned structure. And it was sold to the government of the UK.
Ah.
Yeah. It's in all the history. They are stating all the same. Even in old newspaper, they are telling it was a private-owned structure and it was sold to the UK government.
Now, I will believe you, and I trust but verify. But as we were taught, and as it's told on our television, and as it's told in stories and fairy tales, it's always been there, and it's bazillions of years old, and it's as old, if not older, than the pyramids, and blah blah blah. And it's
what about all those other stone circles in England? Because they almost have 20 of them.
We really,
I think that's very
in my
strange.
schooling, Stonehenge is the one. And honestly, if somebody said how many stone circles are there in England, I'd say one, and it's Stonehenge. But if there are a bunch of them, that would not at this point amaze me, because I do believe that all those other ones are much more relevant, and Stonehenge could be the red herring.
Yeah. Also,
Well, there is one in Avebury, but I mean, now is that real as well? Then
well,
are they all real or not real? Oh my goodness!
it's very easy to do. You type in on Google the name of the site. You type in old dates, and I start 1915, and I go 1949, 1948, 1947. It's you have to do. It's a long time of research, but I basically count down the years. Then I put in construction or repair, and then you get old photos, and then you get old stories, and then basically all the other sites. They did some reconstruction on some other stone circles in the UK. The one I showed you, that was like a cross. They didn't do any reconstruction on that side, and there are also ancient stories about that with giants again. Very interesting. Most of the old, really old, legit structures, they have ancient stories of giants.
What about Avebury? They've decided that Silbury Hill now is a pyramid of the world, so they've turned that into a pyramid.
Mm-hmm. Well,
What I mean is that one's turned into a pyramid.
Well, even if those archaeology people can't even tell that Inca structures, like I showed in the beginning of this video, are all Inca structures. No, they aren't. You can clearly see there are buildings that are predating the Inca civilization. And most investigators and people who go there and supposedly have the knowledge and the schooling, everything, and the tools, they still state, it's all Inca. It's clearly not. And a lot of people are now seeing, because Brian Foster goes over there, other people go over there, and they clearly point out that it isn't all Inca. It's also with the Maya temples. They aren't all Maya. There are a lot of predating the Maya civilization. I showed in Egypt clearly that site with the bigger stones and smaller stones on top. They are predating the Egypt civilization. The pyramids are almost certain predating the Egypt civilization. So they lie to us all the time. Sometimes, it's ridiculous that they probably have a reason for that, because if the older structure are the most advanced, we are getting stupider as a people, and they want us to believe that we evolved from monkeys, and not in the distant past there were human races that were far smarter than us. There are even found skulls that are bigger than us with a bigger brain volume all around. They try to hide that in the Smithsonian all the time.
They try to hide that creation was complete from the start already.
Even completed than it is now.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, Patricia wanted to say something. Patricia?
Yeah, about Stonehenge, I've just been doing a bit of research about it, and apparently Avebury as well are two World Heritage Sites, and that Stonehenge was rebuilt to what they thought it would look like. I've sent artists a picture of the 1934 painting by John Constable of what he saw Stonehenge as. I don't know if the link's right or anything, but yeah. So it just makes you wonder why they want to change everything. Be a reason. I mean, it could be just tourists, because they say we don't really have much in this country. But like Artist says, there's loads of these circles. There's Hadrian's Wall. There's villages. I mean, I must admit, I went to see a Saxon village. I think it was Saxon.
And you don't know anymore, do you?
It was just, when I looked, it was just a field. I'm like, is that it? I was expecting, like proper buildings.
Yeah.
But it was just like little stones in the grass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyway, I just thought I'd just say that.
Yeah, great. And also that painting was not before 1700. So there aren't any paintings, there aren't any books about Stonehenge before 1700. Nothing. I've done a couple of days of research, also in the past. If somebody has a book before 1700 of Stonehenge, I will be glad to see it, because to my knowledge, before 1700, there is nothing told about Stonehenge whatsoever. So that's also, they did all the paintings, all the drawings, are all after 1700. And you have pretty much a great structure in the UK. That is the Cavendish stone circle that I showed before on the Isles of Lewis. And that one is a really monolithic structure. And you have many others. I've come across many other stone circles in England. I have to do some more research about them. But Stonehenge is not the only one. There are lots more.
You had something else up now. Then you had something else up, yeah. Ceres just presented you again because you had a picture up which you took down because we were talking.
Oh, I don't know.
The coggy wheel thing. You had the coggy wheel things up.
Oh yeah, that ancient theme. Yeah, wait a second.
Yeah, you need to get your yeah, you've done it now.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough time. You were too quick.
No, I was still in the box.
This one is magnificent through all these prime numbers, I understood. And it is so accurate, and it's the same as the whole astrological stuff. I figured I probably can extrapolate all these numbers out of the cycles they go, out of the astrological movement in time. So we can actually build our own clock based on the numbers.
Right. Now, one of the other things I dabble in, or at least I appreciate, is cryptography. And cryptography pretty much has to work with prime numbers, because otherwise, if something was an 8, well, that could be 2 4s, or it could be 4 2s. So 8 is a bunch of 2s, obviously. That's 2 times 2 times 2. But it just that's why you work with prime numbers, so you don't have things fall on top of themselves. And when you get 2 prime numbers and you multiply them together, you wind up with a way bigger number, et cetera, et cetera. And it just bothers me. It doesn't bother me. I actually find it quite cool that the Antikythera device, most of the gears within the device are prime numbers left and right and left and right, which, and since it does measure the bodies that are going around in our heavens, it is a really nice, cool / weird, ironic, may have been designed that way, setup that our celestial bodies rotate in patterns of prime numbers. And that's just why I think going back to, or people who have the art and knowledge of how to read time using the celestial bodies, you could date a period in history to a much more accurate point, because it won't be give and take here or there. You say it was right after the red moon, right after Jupiter was over here, right after, so you can tell exactly when it was and backdate it, and
it's kind of the only true calendar in that sense.
Yeah, it's a true calendar that you don't say, well, they were using the Jewish calendar and therefore Jesus was maybe born, should have been born like sometime after September, right around October, and we go with the pagan holiday that's in Christmas, December 25th, and we blame it on Newton, which happened to be like one of those first Mason guys, but it just, where if we really went with the biblical calendar, it's like pretty black and white. It was, 2-3 weeks after the feast of whatever happens in August, and it all has to do with moons and the seasons, and you can tie it to real tangible things, as opposed to playing guessing games and blaming some guy about getting hit with an apple and calls it gravity, and boom, it's his birthday. Ironically.
Yeah. Yeah. They make up stories all the time to actually hide the truth. It's ridiculous at some point what people believe, because they count on it that people don't do the research, and that's why I'm glad this group is around, that with knowledgeable people who know what they are talking about and actually do their research and come up with great things like Ceres, like Angel, like Patricia, like other members of the Sun and Moon group. They do their research, they get their camera, they go outside, they film the moon, they film the sun, they film the stars, they film the clouds, and compare it with other people who film that, and they can draw their conclusion from that very clear, that there are more chemtrails in the skies. A lot of people are also talking about that the hottest point of the day has moved to a later date, later time in the day. Most of the time, when I remember as a kid and other people, I asked about it. Normally, the hottest part of the day was around 12 to 1 o'clock, midday. And now it's changed to around 3 till 4 o'clock. Later.
You might wonder if they actually moved the siesta as well, because that was the hottest point of the day.
Mm-hmm. I found it very strange because, into my knowledge, it has moved to a later date, a later time in the day.
I'd say you could possibly blame that on the intention to try to retain the heat within the within the bubble.
Oh, that the chemtrails are causing it to that the heat will stay inside the globe, of inside the globe firmament.
Well, within if you have
that's what Chris says
within the air, even a tiny bit, those water particles will retain the energy that's provided by the sun, and as they bleed off the energy, since there's more of them, they will take that much longer to bleed that energy off. Mm-hmm. So they will act as like a energy sponge as they bleed back off the energy back to their 0 point. Everything wants to go back to zero. You put a cup of water, if it's cold, it's going to get warm. If it's hot, it's going to get cold. It'll go to the ambient temperature. Well, if it's had a bright light shining on it, as soon as you turn off the light, it still has to regress back to its ambient temperature. And if you have more particulates, whether they're man-made or otherwise, in the air, they will all be cooling down until they get to the ambient temperature. That could be a reason. And then I wouldn't put it past them, because their whole goal is, mess up the environment as much as they can until we beg for help, and then they come in and say, like, yay, give Al Gore money and he'll fix everything somehow. And even though he won't,
Oh yeah,
money.
they always want to earn more money if that's possible. Always they try to. Yeah, it's all about the money. It's not about the health of the people or the health of the animals. It's the money.
No, stack your labor on a pile. Never give it away. It's the funny thing. I mean, originally we were actually doing everything for each other as a family. And somehow money came in between it. And now we're doing it only for the money. And I can't imagine a country where there's no bank, where there's no money, where there are thousands of hands, millions of hands, and those hands can't do anything because there's money. That's what people say in their own mind. If it's not for money, I don't do it. So in that way, we never work for each other or together in that sense. Oh, I just dropped out.
No, I hear you fine.
Who just dropped out?
No,
Yeah.
he didn't drop out. Just no one replied.
No, I just dropped out and came back.
Yeah, my headset shut down, and if my headset shuts down, I have to rejoin. Otherwise, I can't hear anybody.
Oh, I didn't. Artist dropped out. I'm sorry.
Do you know what? In the last so many hangouts, we've been so interested in the history of this thing and the fact that it's all there, and the pyramids. I told you about Silbury Hill being a pyramid and all that. And then you get to Stonehenge and it's a lie. And you think, oh, no. What's real and what's not real?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to when I was saying that pile of dirt in my backyard. And I was meaning you. Yeah, that's a pile of dirt back there. Don't worry about that. It's been there 1,000+ years. But this Stonehenge that we built, yeah, let's sell tickets for that.
Yeah, your Earth's probably more real. Let's go to Angel's house.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just disappointing, isn't it? It's so disappointing. Anyway, artists, you were doing a thanks for that, Angel and Ceres and Patricia. Are you presenting something, artists? Again, sorry, that picture of those coggy things.
No, not at the moment. But I have to get to the. I have to go to the bedroom for real quick for some moment.
Okay.
This thing has been rebuilt and such, and I wonder if there is a PDF with a blueprint of it, so we can actually make it kind of digital and then use that as well as a pinpointer of time.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure somewhere somebody, if we ever get to see it, would be in a whole other story, laid it out before they went out there and started digging holes, and surveyed it from some central point and actually set it up, because it is set up in such a way that whoever did set it up, I've been told that people went out there in the 60s and 70s, I guess it would have been after it was rebuilt in the 50s, there, and on certain nights, stars would be over certain rocks when you stood from the center. So whoever did rebuild it did have knowledge of how to map that out. So that alone says that whoever did build it, rebuild it. Even current day, when I say that, current era people did have that knowledge, probably would be the type masons that would know how to rebuild the Antikythera device and wouldn't have to
I heard
reverse
they actually with what was it with scans took out all the components and then remade all the components and put it together as it was, but that they didn't have the understanding of why all these wheels were these wheels and these particular primary numbers. They couldn't figure that part out, but they could copy what it was. And I like to have the same blueprint so that I can actually build it in a 3D and make it digital, that we can actually use it to use it as a calendar.
Are you familiar with the Enigma machine?
Yeah.
Okay. There's 2 or 3 Java web pages that have the Enigma machine, so you could actually play with it and you don't actually have to rebuild one. I would really like to see eventually, someday, somebody who knows Java and takes the time to look at the Antikythera device and look at all the gearing, to rebuild one in Java so that you could actually just, play with the knobs, and hence we could like use it as a tool as opposed to be in awe of it if we had one. Like if I had an astrolabe, I could, or however you say it, you could sit there and like be in awe of how it like tells you where the stars are, and it always is somehow magically correct, even though we're going millions of miles an hour around the solar system randomly around a big huge thing, but all the stars seem to still stay there.
Kind of that what was it, trivium that based on 3 triangles or something, and then the first one was the why and the second one was the how, and we seem to always be learn from the beginning point and how, but never the why, so we can never actually build a circle of understanding. One
of the other things is this little toy. You know what it is, right? Probably all you. This is a what do you call it?
What do you call it?
It's to make a straight line on the land.
Now its name is eluding me. Yeah. Astrolabe. It's not an astrolabe. This is a
little one.
Well, I know how it works anyway. You look at the North Star, you point it, you look at some other, actually do it this way, look at some other star, you use it for triangulation, and you find out where you are, if you know where the stars are, and you would most likely need to utilize a toy and or a slide rule at the time that would help you
clock as well,
tell where you are, and it was all triangulation. But it all worked off of the stars, and now we all use our GPSs. We don't even look up. We look down. Instead of looking up, we look down.
Yes, we were talking about that with Matt Jerome today. We don't look up, really. We look down. We look on our phones. We look everywhere but where we're supposed to be looking to notice things.
People are even looking at each other anymore. Far less than before the mobile phone. People are looking at their phones for communication, but they don't look at each other. And also, I think it's very sad that is happening. Even young children are looking at their phones and not looking at each other. They are staying indoors more often, and I think the interaction with the humans between each other is very important, because we're all connected to each other in vibration, in every sense. Are you?
I'm just playing with it.
Yeah.
You use the North Star.
Is that old or new? Is old or new? Is that?
You pointed at the North Star, and then when you turn it, there's where you guys probably can't see it, but there's a mirror that's on there as well. So you're
we can see it.
While you're looking at the mirror, and you aim the mirror at a different star, and you use like different lenses for doing other things. But once you have it aimed, then you can look at what angle you're at, what azimuth or the difference between them, and you just use that with a couple of different stars, and you use triangulation, and poof, you figure out where you are. But You have to know where the stars are supposed to be, and then you can tell where you are.
They also used that for navigation on ships back in the day.
Well, yeah, this was a sailor's tool. This is how, you know, when you're middle of the ocean and everything is big and flat, you can't tell anything except for the stars.
Indeed.
So, and the stars would tell you where you are, and the stars will tell you when you are as well. You can read them use your stars as a calendar. It tells you when you are, where you are, and when you are.
Indeed.
And I think
most of the people nowadays don't even know how to use that device anymore.
Well, it's fairly tricky. Well, you have to know where the stars are. I don't have all the stars memorized. I really don't. I rely on a cool like Starry Nights or something like that as a little app on the phone, so I can point at them and name them. You know, get their names, and then I can cheat and look at the chart and figure it out. Or if you had one of those Antikythera devices, you could put your date in, and it tells you where the stars are, and then you could say, okay, it's if you have points of reference, you can tell where you are. So it's a knowledge of the stars, the celestial bodies, and it's if
it's not knowledge. It's not knowledge they teach at school anymore.
Right, because you don't need it. You have an iPhone, and you have a clock on the wall, and you have a calendar. You have a calendar and you have a clock. So they tell you what time it is. You don't base it off of noon. You base it off of what time they tell you. And
again, telling you everything.
Because they have the time zone thing, the not time zone thing, the time and undaylight time.
Yeah.
And even some years ago, they also at one day that was the same day. So you 2 days in a row that was the same day a couple of years ago, because the calendar wasn't working anymore.
Really?
Yeah, and also they have in the daylight saving, and also it's called in the Dutch a schikkeljaar. So it's not in February. It's not 30 days, but only 28, because otherwise the whole dating system doesn't work anymore. So the dating system that we are using now isn't as accurate as it should have. Isn't accurate at all.
600 and what is it? 660, 365.
Or 663.
56.25 days, a quarter day. So every fourth year you need an extra day.
Yeah.
And on February 29 we added.
Yeah.
Can I just say that Will's joined us? Hello, Will.
Hey, Will.
Good morning, Will.
Hey guys. How's everyone?
In case you don't know who's on here, Will, we've got obviously artists, Ceres, Patricia and me. We've got Angel from America, and he's really into the pyramids and ancient structures, and he's been coming on Hangouts with us on Sundays.
Okay, cool.
He's one of Ceres' friends. Aren't you, Will?
Even my neighbor.
Yeah, he's almost
wants to read away. Yeah, he just wants to read away.
Anyway, we're just been finding out that Stonehenge is rubbish. It's a lie. That's great, isn't it? Anyway, sorry. Back to who was talking there, because I interrupted. There's Angel there. Go back to Angel. What were you saying, Angel?
I was just showing the toy that, again, the name eludes me. That and say how it would be that and a compass. I guess you would kind of need both of those, because you have to have orientation. Would tell you where you are on the plane, and it was using trigonometry, or not trigonometry, geometry, and it's the type of thing that Boy Scouts kind of should have known. In fact, in some ways we did, but not as much as probably people of old days, sailors would have all known this. I'm sure, you know, you even see it in that one video with Milan, you know, where they stick up there, because you work with something, you work with a right angle, you have to work, it's all triangulation. You have to work with a known position of something, you know, and you can, at worst, get a rough guess. You know where north is, you can kind of, you know, tell your direction. You know where something is, you know where the sun is at what time of the day. You can tell when noon is, and it's all more triangulation. But the point is that the stars are always in a consistent place. You know, with time, they're in a consistent place, and that doesn't work on the ball model. And
I think we might have to actually restructure the comment, like when we do ancient structures and pyramids, whether we have to say truth or lie. We'll just start saying truth or lie.
Is that a question?
Yeah, is it truth or lie? Like, we'll have to put up the title, like, truth or lie.
Right.
Would you be really horrified if after all the hours of work you've put into the pyramids, if you found out that all that was a lie?
Well, I still don't think it would be a lie, because even if it was only made 300 years ago, it still is a structure. I still believe it was poured, or at least major chunks of it were poured. And if major chunks of it were poured, then they could have used that and then used that as a pool, and they could have used hydraulics and lifts and gates and stuff to get the bigger rocks up there. It is not an unconceivable thing. It can be done, especially when the outside frame is most likely poured. So that would, all they have to do is use buckets of water and the filler and the mixer and the stuff to bring it up there, and then they just keep bringing water. I mean, there's so many ways it could be done. They could have used, I believe, also balloons, dirigibles, zeppelins, whatever you want to label them, lighter than aircraft. It doesn't have to be harmonics. They didn't have to know Hutchinson. They didn't have to, you know, conceivably do that. They may have. There's still more to be known, but it didn't have to be done with magic and mirrors. It is all a doable, conceivable thing. But what I look at is what the structure has taught me, and the structure has taught me more about water than I knew. And if you just look at it like you do a Van de Graaff generator or a Lord Kelvin drip generator or something like that, and look at it as I believe it was configured. And I really want to know what the internals of the other structures are doing. And I think when we learn more about what it was doing, we'll find out that, well, I think just nature and seeing what the system does will tell us what the other structures are doing. I don't really want to guess or throw things in people's minds. There are possibilities, but a lot of them are heyday things. And I really want to model it and see what it does in real life, IRL, and let that be the judge of what it was meant to do. But at least the main engine of it is pretty clean. And I also believe that whether it was built 300 years ago or 3,000 years ago or 30,000 years ago, that even today, if we smacked the wooden structure off the top of it, it would start to collect static electricity just like it used to, and people could go up there and their hair would stand on ends, and tall people could get little sparks to fly off, and people could go up there with bottles and wet rags and make little sparks fly off it, because you'd be standing on the surface of a huge Van de Graaff generator. Just nothing else but that should show us that these guys knew more than we do today. Now, that we're talking trickle amounts of electricity, like I said, not enough to go arc welding, but enough to touch somebody and go zap, 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 you know, over and over again. And that's really what I believe.
It's enough. It's enough electricity to galvanize a certain brush things with a gold layer.
You can do electroplating. You can do colloidal silver.
Somebody, how do you call that? He also had a, I don't know, transformer or something, and a motor, where he had very low voltage, but the motor had such a torque, it wasn't compared to what you're actually feeding it with normal power. I had you guys play the kind of special. Probably the other side of it, the static energy, where there's way more power. Like I see with this antenna thing, what I'm working with, I can actually burn with 10 milliamp, more than 40 milliamp of power as a light. You know, and then I wonder, where does that extra energy come from? It's just in that particular type of energy.
What I was again, as we showed that motor that ran on electrostatic electricity, like was it last week? I had you guys show it, or maybe it wasn't you. There's I can easily pull it up. It's a YouTube by a guy named Rimstar, who puts uses a drone copter instead of putting an antenna. Great idea, just to show the.
Oh, that's
And it uses electrostatic to I can't do it.
And down, yeah.
Right, and it's just using static electricity to run a little motor, you know. So
it took a while to actually get
work can be done, and nowadays we use trickle amounts of electricity to charge our cell phones. I actually have a little solar cell about yo big that you can put out on a picnic bench, and it will hold enough to charge a cell, you know, about a cell phone and a half. But you let it sit there for about 2-3 hours. It's full. You plug it into your cell phone, and at night when your cell phone's going dead, boom, you got a recharge, and it costs you nothing. But that's trickle amounts of power. You're not going to arc weld with it, but 3 hours of trickle amounts of power is enough to charge your cell phone. And nowadays we work with trickle amounts of power. So trickle amounts of power is no longer, but
it's kind of the same with buying a house or renting a house. Renting a house causes that you keep spending money and you can't get anything for it back.
Yeah.
Buying a house actually gives you the property, so that's only a one-time spending. And you can do longer with that one-time spending than what you would spend on renting it. And that's how the electric network works as well. You have to get the energy from them. You need to buy a battery. You can't use anything what is kind of saving you the energy, because it's all against the business model. And the business model is on drain you from your money.
Angel, the device that you were showing, isn't that called a sextant device?
That's the word, right? Sextant. It was eluding my mind, and I should have, it had sex in it, so I should have totally remembered that. But at first, when I first saw the name, I'm like, "Ooh, that's a nasty word, isn't it? Is that some sort of a new position? I don't know." And I'm like, "Oh, that's a boy."
Or does the device actually enhance the sexual pleasure or something?
I don't want to know.
there are much that is like a $20-$30 version. There are versions that are in the hundreds that are, they're usually about the size of a decent sized thing, and they're much more accurate. That one's brass and it kind of wobbles and it's thin metal. The ones that a real sailor would have would be more sturdy and a little bit better built. I just wanted to have one to show it to people and have them hold something in their hands and they can kind of use it. You can do some basic things and you can sit there with one of those little spinning pie chart things. Although nowadays, like I said, I use a cell phone and pull it up on a web page because you can. But in the old days, you have to have your chart and stuff, and you can tell where you are. And it is, it's the old version of GPS. And with it, you don't have to pay a monthly service. You just have to know how to read the stars. But then again, if people knew how to read the stars, you could also learn how to read the time. Well, at least the calendar. And you could tell times in history and times in the future and times in past. You have to start with a known thing and work from there. And
that's why a lot of old buildings have a sundial on the building.
This is true as well. That so you could tell the time, because that was time. You would tell the time by the sun. Nowadays, you can't use a sundial because noon isn't always noon, and it's just noon isn't always noon. If you're not right at the right spot within your time zone, noon isn't noon.
Yeah, here in Germany, you have often old buildings, and instead of a clock, they have a sundial. And also, you have on big squares, you also have sundials, but they're often made of tool steel. So they are very long. The tool steel doesn't erode as much as other kind of brass metal.
Huh.
Yeah.
Tool steel?
They use tool steel, and they often paint it black with the black paint, so it will last as long as possible.
A sundial will give you a guesstimate of the time of the day. It's not like you're going to sit there and say, it looks like 2 and it's really 11 a.m.
Yeah.
It might be 1:30 and it might be,
but in that time they use it for an estimate of the time of the day, and they often put those sundials on squares or on buildings on squares. And in Germany, because we have them still on some buildings. So in Hamburg, you have one, a very big one. If you type in Hamburg and sundial, you will probably find it within a couple of seconds. So back in the day, they also used that. Yeah, they also always used tool steel. That's gereedschapsstaal. Ceres.
Stainless steel.
Yes, stainless steel. They also called it tool steel or stainless steel.
Stainless steel.
Yeah, stainless steel. Because that will last forever. And they always use a chemical black paint. You can't even use that anymore because it's too poisonous.
Okay.
But very interesting, Angel.
Well, thank you. But I don't know if there's anything else. I just, not that I think everyone should wake up tomorrow and start using a completely new calendar, but not being told of it.
Yeah.
And well, I could kind of understand why, because they use it in the Bible. And they want to get us as far removed from the Bible as possible, because if you read what they say in the Bible, if you don't understand it, it makes no sense. You know, if they say, "Oh, it's after the second red moon," it's like, "What's a red moon, Dad?" I don't know. It happens every once in a while. Those people who do star charts worry about it. We don't worry about those. Those are weird people. You know, just make it something obscure and abnormal, and where. If it was how we told time, everyone would know what it meant. And I think it's
and today day and age, we have the internet, so you can research a lot of things. I can do my research at home. I can do research on ancient structures because I have a certain type of structure. I get all views from every angle, top with drones, everything, so you can clearly see the whole things. And also they have YouTube videos who explain how to use that sextant. YouTube videos how to tell you how to use it. So we have a day and age now that you can invest everything, but people still don't investigate. Said enough.
Well, they'd rather be paying more attention to what the ball game is doing and what dancing is on the stars is happening.
Yeah. What is newest pop star and everything?
Unless they understand the bigger picture, that most everything you're told is not the truth.
Mhm.
And at this point, I'm saying most everything, because when we're working with a calendar that's not the right calendar, and
No.
our government tells us what time it is, then we're working with everything that is pretty much not the truth. So unless you realize that and you start researching on your own and you start drawing your own picture, and over time you start getting your own mindset of what reality is, and you still have to work within the matrix. We're still living in the matrix. I walk up to people every day that they say, oh, look at that wonderful contrail. I'm like, no, that's a chemtrail, and it'll probably be there all afternoon. But they're just, and I like, you laugh. I would, every time I would see a door greeter, whether it's at Walmart or at the restaurant, somebody says, hi, how you doing, welcome, and there was a nice trail up there, I'd point it up there and I'd be like, check out that cool contrail. Too bad it's probably going to be here all afternoon. And I'd make them think, plant that seed.
Yeah.
Because they're
Plant
standing there,
seeds.
15 minutes later, they're going to see it start to widen. And an hour
Yeah.
later, they're going to notice it's all a big cloud. And
Mhm.
I planted that seed that if they pay attention, if not that day, the next day,
Yeah.
or at one point they're going to look up there and say, what was that crazy guy saying? Wow, check that out. Maybe he wasn't so crazy. That
And
fool,
the next day they see a couple of chemtrails and they think, well, there are more. That's strange. And then maybe that's a great way indeed of planting seeds. That's what I do. I talk to people. I start with small things, not again all at once. The Earth is flat. Then they think, whoa, what is he talking? Just start with the simple things like the weather. Nice weather, indeed, like you did, and you point out a chemtrail, or you point out other things, and you to plant seeds and wake up people. That is basically what we are doing here at the Sun and Moon Group with our live research. We are planting seeds for other people to investigate further on.
I have what I want to do. I live near a beach. So I want to go down there. I want to put just, a frame, like a picture frame, that'll be reality. And then I want to have a pair of binoculars connected with a mini webcam projecting to a monitor. And then I want to have a telescope projected to a webcam projected to a monitor, so that people can see that boat. Yeah, see, it's gone. Can't see it anymore. Oh, look, there it is. It's in the binoculars. Oh, it's gone. It's gone. But it's still in the telescope. I just, that's my goal. But
it's great, man.
It takes a little setup, and it takes, I have to be like, go down there and babysit it, set it up, probably bring my own, like, my goal would be to have a solar powered generator, so I play the whole green thing.
They even have solar power that look like a mobile phone or a smartphone with a solar power panel on it, and you can charge your cell phone with solar power.
But things like this little toy here has like a 5-hour battery in it, so I might be able to just do it like with a couple of laptops. I don't need big, displays. But I just want to, people come over. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just, watching this.
Angel, for a laptop, you have those solar power panels, small ones you can plug in, so it will last longer.
Yep, I all the above. It can happen. If nothing else, believe me, I'm going to spend 5 hours out there. I'm going to get a nice suntan as it is. But my the intention is to just, people walk by, what are you doing? Point out to them, make them think. I don't even want to tell them. No. I just want to point it out, and I want somebody to ask me. I want to make it so they're the inquisitive one. I don't want to give them the information. I want them to ask me.
That's a great way, because then they think they are finding it out. Yeah.
Right. I'm not force feeding. If I say,
on that note, they don't feel as stupid because they realized it for themselves. That's a great way to actually put it. Yeah, that's great.
That's my I like it's. I work with the pyramid, and I work with cognitive dissonance all the time, where I will sit there and I will let somebody tell me a story. Even a great story is Building 7. I've had a friend of mine sits there, and I showed him the building falling and said, yes, that's controlled demolition. And then he finds out it's Building 7. He researches on his own, tries to like call my bluff. He said, oh, that fell by a fire, office fire. It was in total inferno. I'm like, show me a picture of total inferno. Can't find a picture. It's like finding a picture of the earth. You know, there is no picture. It's all CGI. You know, it's like,
I think it's really alarming. A lot of people don't even today know that the whole complex went, including Building 7. But there was no way Building 7 should have come down like that. So that's a strange thing. But the whole complex went that day. And people don't understand. It's not just the Twin Towers. There were 7 buildings that went that day.
yeah. Well, except for the power plant, which was beneath Building 7, and the hotel, Building 3.
Yeah,
How did they manage to save that then?
Well, it's also strange because I watched some old footage of that they had in Europe of the whole day without the time between them, but they showed basically all the video clips as raw as possible, and they basically thought in Europe Building 7 collapsed because of the collapse of the World Trade Center and the almost earthquake-like resonance in the floor. That's why the Building 7 collapsed.
We just got joined. But what I want to say
is bullshit, man.
Building 7, I believe, and I think the trade centers were more than just buildings, but that really is when you look at what they could have been used for. Just like I think to this day, our wonderful Hoover Dam is really a Lord Kelvin, a big huge Lord Kelvin drip generator, and if it isn't, I want to know why it isn't, because it's the perfect setup for a huge Lord Kelvin drip generator. But regardless of that, when you look at the buildings isolated from ground, they could have been used as huge antennas, and Building 7 being right on top of the Edison power plant could have been the point where they were dumped to, how they fed in. And the whole reason that the power downage for the weekend before was because they had to take the buildings offline. Like, you do a nuclear power plant, you had to gen them down and before you take them offline, so there isn't a big blump to the system. And well, that's just if they were a power source and if they were part of the grid, that would be an excuse why they would have had to come down, not just for finishing the wiring that they wanted the buildings to be neutral, but they needed to have the buildings isolated from the circuit so they could pull them away from the power grid without causing a ripple. But
oh yeah, that's a possibility indeed.
Yeah, I think. But when you look at some of the ways they're engineered, and when you look at how I believe that I believe more to this day, and when you look at what I was saying, I know I'm jumping around. When I was talking with Chris Monk the other day, the one who joins us every now and then, and I was saying how when that day the building was a short to ground, I was being literal because it was, at the time, it wasn't connected to our power grid. We weren't feeding our power grid off of that. I believe using Tesla type technology, pulling energy from the air down into the power grid and using that as alternate ground to step it up. But that's a whole nother issue with power. But they had to isolate it from our electrical power grid because they knew the buildings were coming down, and they did that over the course of the weekend, and they had to do it slowly. So they took the building itself offline because they needed to power down the building and separate it from the whole power grid. But during the day,
sense.
While it was not connected to the power grid, that energy had to go somewhere, and because of that, it was pulling the hurricane towards it. And after the buildings fell, the hurricane then was able to bounce back and pull into its equilibrium with the energies of the earth. That's
It
my
had also
theory.
to do something with the water supply, what was connected to the water of the sea, out of where the energy of the hurricane actually could flow through
Right.
into the building, and then the other side was
Since
through the air.
buildings were big and metal, normally you would ground them, but the buildings, instead of being grounded, were grounded to our electrical grid. So they were just pulling the energy down from above. And when they were taken off the grid, since they didn't want it to be a shock when the buildings fell, they were just grounded at that point. And since they were just huge antennas sticking up there, taller than anything other than the Empire State Building, which itself, I think, is fishy at the time it was built, and the Sears Tower as well. But that's, I don't want to go into, and knowing more about the Masons and how they built stuff, I think that the knowledge of electricity has been around for a really long time, which is why really people built copper roofs for a reason. And it wasn't just because
Well, I also want to point out that the beer guy has joined us. Welcome.
Hello, Richard. I was just about to introduce you. I was just waiting for a gap there.
Go ahead and introduce people. I'll take a drink.
Oh, no, that's okay, guys. But hello, Richard.
Hello. You all right?
I do need a beer.
You got a beer, Richard?
What I was getting at is when you
Absolutely not.
learn more and more about the world we live in or on, then, or in, it depends on how you want to look at it. When you have to think of yourself both in the matrix and out of the matrix, you have to deal with people that are not awake. So you kind of have to feel them out, which is why I like to drop seeds and see how they respond. Like I went to a Flat Earth meetup last week, it was last weekend. I wasn't here or whatever. And I actually wound up going with somebody because I wait for somebody to mention something to me, or I'll plant a seed and see how they respond, because some people will respond. I'll drop a Building 7 thing or mention, oh yeah, look at that plane leaving that cool stripe. I hope that isn't there all afternoon. And then later, if I bump into that person, or if it's somebody at work and they say like, wow, yeah, that cloud was there all afternoon and it turned into a big fluffy thing. And I'm like, yeah, it's because it's not a cloud. Why don't you look into geoengineering and get back to me? Here's a couple of videos. Let me send you a link or two. I'll feed their inquisitiveness as opposed to trying to force feed them the information.
Yeah, that's a great way of doing it, because they find stuff out about that kind of a topic for themselves. That's why I also start very small. When somebody was washing his car, and I think, oh, beautiful car. Yeah, it's a GT Mercedes. Well, everything on it. And then I say, is it also a hybrid or not? No, it's not a hybrid. It's still gasoline, but hybrid. Yeah, they're expensive and all that kind. Then I tell them, well, how old do you think the electric cars are? The first was made. Well, most of the time they tell, well, 1985 or something, maybe 1974. And then I always have in my pocket that old newspaper, and I show you a copy of that. I show, well, look at here. Old cars were already there in 1910. And in 1922, they had a big electric car show with electric fans, electric forklifts. And then you see them think, well, electric cars that old? Why aren't they there all around? And I say, yeah, that's the problem. And then they think, oh, that's interesting. And then indeed I put in some old newspapers to that old newspaper site, so they can research for themselves and see for themselves that there are a lot of electric cars. And then they also will find out that 1/4 of the United States was driving in an electric car.
Wow.
And I'm being very low. I'm being very low at my estimate at the moment, because it was probably half. That's why I say 1/4, and I know for sure that I'm in the right. But it was probably even more.
I know at the time they wanted to go with petrol at gasoline because I believe they can control the gasoline, and they have efficiently.
Yeah.
And I've looked at some of the histories and some of the steps, and I told you I was involved in with one company that kind of hit one of those hurdles, and it's when you point out something to them of a way to do things more efficiently, they append a hurdle for you to make it not happen. Like the gentleman in the 70s that said, let's vaporize the gas before we put it into the carburetor. You don't have to change anything on your car except for vaporizing the gas before you put it into the carburetor.
Yeah.
Poof, fuel injection.
Yeah.
Hey, let's take the fuel injection and let's go ahead and, you can do lots of other things to it to increase its efficiency. And now they have the carb emissions testing stuff on it that looks for unspent fuel particulates. And it counts the percentage of unspent fuel particulates. And if the percentage is too low, if your engine is too efficient, it reports back to the computer in your car now, because all your computers are electric computers, to add more gas, and it revs your engine, which rice grinders are great. You put nitrous oxide on there and it revs the engine, and that's what they want, because they want to get to the finish line quicker. But if you want to just put a hydrogen fuel cell on there and just increase your efficiency, even if you increase it by a placebo amount of 5 or 10%, that tells the car to start revving the engine, and it's annoying, and it makes it not worth putting the hardware on there.
You already had hybrid cars in, I believe, 1922. They're already there. If you research, they already were there. And also, I saw a video, but it is blocked. I also tried to put it on my own channel, but it was blocked right away.
I just got dinged last week for a video. So
I also got a strike again. But the video and the documentary is called "Who Killed the Electric Car?"
They blocked you for that?
Who Killed the Electric Car is blocked worldwide.
Oh my
because
goodness!
They don't want to see the people that in the 1960 General Motors built a car, electric car that was driving very nice. A lot of important people like Mel Gibson drove one, and I think that guy that played Forrest Gump.
I've seen the exact same video. I saw it on the Disclose TV network, but it was like a car that had solar panels on it. And
that's the Fisker. That was great.
Oh, on the documentary they also showed a solar panel car, but they also had an electric car, and some people who were
on car.
Yeah. Also, this was another kind of documentary because they didn't show the solar panel car only for a couple of seconds to say that there was one, but basically they had a car driving around, and it's called the EV1.
Yeah,
it was in the 1960s. It drove efficiently, but you could only lease that car. You couldn't buy it. You could lease it. You didn't own it. And a lot of more people, famous people like Mel Gibson, like that guy that played Forrest Gump, I don't know his name, and they all had that car, made advertising about it, and they also had advertising on the television. This is the new car, electricity, because the government of California...
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks, thank you, Karen.
I didn't think who it was.
He was even on the Tonight Show talking about that electric car, that it was a great car, everything was going fine, and they had young engineers build that car for General Motors, and they built it so good that they built it too good to be true. And what did they do? the oil companies were complaining, and they were putting a lot of pressure on General Motors to get rid of that car. They did a lot of bad advertising in the newspapers. The newspapers were just the mouthpiece of the oil companies, and they said that car wasn't efficient. It wasn't even solving the pollution in the air. It was even the batteries of that car were very pollutive to the environment. All that kind of statements they did, and they had to choose in I believe 2004 between the Hummer, that very heavy car, and that electric car, because they had to make cuts because they didn't make a lot of profit, so they had to cut some workers or some factories. They had to close down, and they had to choose. That's what they are stating. They had to choose between the Hummer and that electric car. The electric car, there were a lot of people wanting that electric car because it was a very nice car to drive. It looked pretty. And not a lot of people wanted that Hummer. So they changed the numbers on people who actually wanted that car, because there was a waiting list for that electric car, and it wasn't one for the Hummer. But they changed all those numbers around and basically told, yeah, that electric car, nobody wants it, and everybody wants that Hummer because that is the car. And so they dropped the electric car because they were stating, General Motors, that the Hummer was a more popular car. It wasn't. The numbers tell differently. And so they dropped the electric car, and they took in all those electric cars that EV wants, where a lot of people said, well, I want to keep it. I want to pay for it, even if it's $2 million. Mel Gibson even said, well, I have to pay double the amount. I still know all the cars were taken in. They were all demolished. They kept one, and they even got rid of the engine in that one that is in the History Museum of General Motors. They even took out the engine to make sure that nobody could replicate that car. So on purpose, that the electric car didn't succeed. It was on purposely done.
I think you can still find that whole documentary about that particular subject on the disclosed.tv website.
Okay, thanks for that. So people can actually watch it. And yes. I think it's there's also a version on Daily Motion where you can watch videos. I also saw there one, but it's in parts, so you have to skip every 10 minutes to the next part. But thanks for that, Willem.
Yeah, no problem.
So I just want to point it out that a lot of car companies want to make sure that the electric car doesn't succeed. And
now,
I get a little bit emotional about that. Sorry for that.
One thing I want to point out about that particular electric car is it did not have a Siri. It did not have a OnStar. It did not have GPS navigation. It didn't have all the things that made the car what I want to call drive-by-wire. Even though it was drive-by-wire, it was still analog drive-by-wire. It wasn't.
It was in 1996 when they first introduced it. Yeah.
So we're talking about the just after the Pentium, and there probably was computers, but the computers weren't Big Brotherish like they are now.
Well,
where right now, OnStar can unlock your doors for you. You can start your car from your living room.
Mm-hmm.
You can almost, it's going to be where you can do whatever you want. It'll be where the car does what it wants.
Well, probably even if the car is in a different location and you're at your job, you can maybe put out a signal and the car will drive towards you on the location where you are. Because some cars are already driving on Google Maps. So,
yeah, Johnny Cap. But the car was a automobile where you were driving it. And that I think is one of the problems, that they weren't ready yet. They're ready now. They want you to have an electrical vehicle now, because that vehicle is always like Boeing's uninterruptible navigation system is always.
Can I say something quickly? You would think that they would want us on electric after they're telling us our place is dying, all those chemicals, all those things. You would think they would want us on electric cars.
They want you on electric now because now they can control you on electric.
Yep.
Now your car is a computer. Your car is a cell phone with wheels. So,
and also they can see where you are.
It's a cell phone with wheels. It has near field communication, which means that the police officer can pull up behind you and they don't have to run you down. They just hit a button and your car will self-park.
Yeah.
And they can drive it to the side of the road.
Yeah.
And
they can shut down your car and get you out of it. Yeah, really easy. And also, yeah.
So they weren't ready for that.
You have to hack your own car.
Right. They weren't ready for that with the EV.
No. It's kind of rooting your phone, taking ownership back, because then you have access to actually your own phone and delete the applications you just don't want.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same.
You're
car
going to have to root your own car.
Yeah, root your own car.
But that or find an old petrol car before they ban them and put a hydrogen fuel cell on there, or go with a biofuel car. Honestly, I'm not opposed to a biofuel car. Or
if you have a diesel engine car, you can drive on sunflower oil.
Yeah, you can drive on a lot of things. I mean, diesel.
Yeah.
The guy
sunflower oil. You can drive easily on that. Only the people who drive behind you think you are driving a potato factory or something.
If you look
like a burnt up oil, like they have in. Sorry.
There's another also cool documentary other than the electric car one about the diesel, and there's a couple of them. Number one, I believe diesel engines. If you took all the engines in the world and put them in one mixing pot, the diesel engine is like 60 to 75% of the market. When you look at boats, trains, cranes, things like that, generators on the side of a building, the diesel engine is a very efficient engine.
Also, big transport trucks, they almost all are diesel. Yeah.
Diesels are the powerhouse of everything almost worldwide. And it really sucks that they killed the guy just before they let that cat out of the bag. They're like, hey, this guy has a great engine. We don't want to give him. What was it when Tesla said, "Oh, just give me a percentage of your sales. That's fine. You take the thing, just give me a percentage of the sales." I'm like, this will bankrupt us.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, we don't want to give him the money, and so they bumped him off a boat, and poof. Then the next couple of years later, they started making diesel engines in their tanks and diesel engines in their this and diesel engines in their boats. But guy's dead. Can't give him royalties.
I think you can easily convert a diesel channel that would run on sunflower oil or other oils from plant. I think that it can be easily done.
You could run it on corn. Use the GMO corn for something good. Burn it.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah,
but
burn it.
Actually, I don't think we should. I'd rather burn real corn than GMO corn. I don't even want its ashes in this world.
No.
It should be more than incinerated, because some of those ashes might not, get out of there.
Oh yeah, indeed. Yeah.
But that's the only good thing about the GMO corn, and really my understanding is the reason why we allowed the GMO corn to even be allowed to be is because it was a genetically modified organism and not supposed to be in our food supply. Oh. It was supposed to be burnt. It was supposed to be used to make plastics. It was supposed to be used to make things that were not sugar, that were not cow food, that was
the setup from the beginning, indeed.
Yeah, but now it said, we will not feed you with it. Oh, we're just a little. How about we feed just the cows with it? How about we just use it to use the sugar that we feed you with it?
Why? How about only in the medicine?
Yeah, we just stick it in here. We just do everything but feed it to you.
Well, back in the day, you have if you go and search your food in Europe, you had different numbers for artificial coloring and artificial additives and preservatives, and you had another number for plant-like substance that will color your food, like beet or some plants that color your food, and other preservatives and additives that are natural. And those two had the chemical ones and the plant-based one had different numbers. And when the Europe became one, they made one number of it. So if you read the package, it says a number, but you don't know anymore if it's artificial or not.
I can't remember the name right now, but they came out with a new name for sugar. I think they call it like
I can believe it's not sugar.
Yeah. Well, you know how they're allowed to say naturally sweetened or things like that. Yeah. And they say, well, that's sugar, or they play with words. And they came up with a new name for sugar, like I think it was naturally sweetened. What they say, because it's sweetened by nature, that's like a new name for sugar on the packet. So they hide it everywhere they can.
Aspartame.
Aspartame they use as a chemical sugar, and they have all kinds of other chemical sugars. And what they all do very cleverly, aspartame is the name, and it's also, I believe, 5951. It has an E number, that's a European number. Aspartame, I believe it's 951. But what they do often, they put on the package all the numbers, 200, A204, A365, and then all the package only has numbers on them, because they are allowed to do that, not to say aspartame, but only put A951 on there. But what they even do is they put all numbers, so you can see there are a lot of E numbers in the project, and 3 of the worst ones they put in the name, like aspartame, monodiclycamide, and that. So people only think, oh, there are only 3 E numbers on the package. No, there are actually 10. But the other, they say they state the chemical name. So they all try.
Seems to be a chemical one, what is actually a poison or something. It's there's this 21
they try to hide the worst ones, always.
They'll probably change it to emojis soon, and aspartame will be like, and then and GMO will be,
GMO will be in happy corn, and aspartame will be in a happy sugar.
Happy sugar, happy sugar cube.
Oh, we have happy sugar cubes in our food and happy corn. It must be healthy. Yeah, I mean, now we're laughing about it, but it wouldn't surprise me.
If it happens in 10 years, I'm going to slap you.
Yeah.
You put this thought into their head.
Oh, shit. We are guilty.
That would be bad. But it could happen. Nowadays, speaking in you can personalize your emojis in the new iPhone, so it's possible.
Indeed.
Yeah. We'll work our way all the way back to Sanskrit. We'll find out that those Sanskrit things are really emojis at heart.
Oh yeah, you never know.
They're emojis on the 2D plane. Now we use the 3D animated emojis.
So,
So, you want to get back to pyramid stuff, or you want to talk about something else?
You've covered a great spectrum. We have covered a big spectrum of things.
Well, it's
all pyramid related. We know
it's all lie related.
Yeah,
it all has to do with, we're living, like I said, we're living in this, in there's a reality I believe we have. And because of that, it's once you are more in the reality, it's easier to see the things that don't really fit the reality. When the square peg don't fit, you know that there's something fishy with it, and it makes it easier to accept, to look at the data and make up your own decision. You know, to actually look at the pictures of the eclipse and say, you know, the story that they say, let's listen to Chris and let's listen to a couple of other people about, you know, what really could be out there, get a couple of ideas. Maybe it's a crystal lattice out there, you know, just work within reality as opposed to work within stories. You know, it's one of the biggest hurdles I have with the pyramid is so many people have already been told stories. Like when you walk up to somebody, a kid, and you say, you know, Santa Claus ain't real. I'm sorry if there are kids listening, but Santa Claus ain't real. And when that hits them, then all the pieces fall into place that they've seen. But, you know, that's why I say I try to plant seeds. I try to plant little cracks. I give you a crack here and I give you a crack there. And hopefully you'll see the cracks and say, well, tell me more about these cracks. But I work with so many people that I'm
often see that people want to learn more. You can see that on their faces, how they react if you plant that seed. You can tell that within a couple of seconds sometimes, that people are eager to learn more.
But I've been hit with people, the pyramid, my particular, I believe, at least my focus, I'm not going to say my expertise, but my focus, where people will hit me with like, but the story says, whoa, I'm like, but that's a story. Can you look at the pictures. Just pretend, and this is why I'm trying to focus on my new focus is get your head out of the sand. Pretend the pyramid is in Utah. Pretend it's at the Great Salt Lakes, the big flat Salt Lakes. Okay, here we are. Let's work on the big flat Salt Lakes. And the same exact three structures, and let's model those three structures, and let's see what actually occurs with nature, and like just model the structures and ignore the stories. Forget about golden capstones and all this other stuff. And it's looking at pictures is the best thing, because when I started down this rabbit hole myself, I went with theories. I went with reading the stories. I went with like how the first time I talked to Chris, he said, oh, wasn't there a piston there or something? And I'm like, well, I think I actually read that story somewhere, but you know, people had flapper valves there. There were so many things that people had re-engineered the structure to do that I said, you know, let's build the structure the way it was, and let's just let nature do its task. Mm-hmm. And when you start with the fact, and I believe it is a fact, that if we were to take that, knock the antenna off the top, the surface of the structure would start to generate static electricity all by itself. And it would just be annoying, which is why they put the antenna up there. But is that buildup of static electricity is really what they were harnessing. That's what that was their crop. And how they did it, I think, is what we need to learn and learn from. But that would really show you that there are trickle amounts of electricity all around us, which is really what they don't want you to realize. They like you to realize it with the solar panels, that there are trickle amounts of electricity, because those, as long as you're connected to their electrical grid, they can benefit by and they can tax you. But if you actually use your own solar panels and hook them to your own battery and ran your house on 12 volts, the same way RVs and boats do, you could live off grid really well. You know, nowadays we can get more efficient with our electricity. And like I've said a decade or so ago, if I said, hey, you can get a free amount of trickle electricity, you can't arc weld with it and you can't power your cell phone with it, because in those days we had bricks. So what could you do with it? Nothing. You couldn't do anything. But now we're much more efficient with our electricity. And now that trickle amount of electricity means.
I watched an interesting video recently. Some guy using hydrogen, and he was like cutting through like solid bits of metal and like tungsten or something. They were just like literally vaporizing tungsten using a hydrogen cutter.
It cuts it like butter. Hydrogen, a plasma torch, I believe is its kind of name. It is a. I'd like to look at how it does it on a cellular level. I'd like to understand it better, but I believe the hydrogen is actually reacting with the metal and pulling electrons from it and like chewing away at it is kind of what it's doing.
Yeah, he was holding it in his hand while he was cutting through it, and then as soon as
you can blow the flame at your hand and it doesn't do anything. It's an amazing how it exactly does it, whether there's tons of heat, not tons of heat, what it reacts with is still kind of amazing to me. I know it is energy, and I know the reaction, it takes energy to break it, and when you burn it back together, it gives you energy back, both in heat and in millielectron volts. There's extra electrons out of the mixture. So I believe there are secrets that until it's really modeled, until people really look at it, like I said, a lot of, well, you weren't here, but I said a lot of it is speculation. I can speculate a lot, but I'd really rather model it. I'd really rather somebody like Chris, who understands all the more of the physics behind it, tells me what the structure is doing. I'll be glad to share with him my knowledge on how I believe it's configured and just let the model run. We can play with configuration a little bit as we understand more of what it's doing, which is also, I don't know if you know a guy named Eric Dollard. He's kind of recreating Tesla's experiments. And one thing he points out is first do what it shows. First follow the experiment as it's documented. Observe the reaction and then make modifications. Then when you understand what it's doing, make modifications and see how it tweaks with it. Don't just do it differently and then say, oh, it doesn't work. Cold fusion doesn't exist. We did it at a higher pressure. We did it at a higher temperature. We used apple juice instead of salt water, and it didn't work. So therefore, he was wrong. Cold fusion doesn't exist. You're changing the environment, and when you change the environment, of course, it's not going to work. And then you poo-poo it, especially when you don't want to let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, corrupt the experiment and then claim it doesn't work. Yeah, right.
It is part of the thing. Which is why part of understanding what the pyramid is looking at is understanding the model. And I'll be glad to explain my model to anyone, because and it's another thing I want to try to do is break the mindset of the tomb dogma from the physical structure itself. Let me tell you my model. You tell me what the model would do, and you say, wow, that's really cool. Check that out. It does do something. Even if it's a pretty waterfall, it's something. And that something, it shows that it was, something. If it was just a pretty waterfall, they would have had some turbine in there spinning some shafts so they could churn some corn or something like what we used to do with water churns, or flour the mill, or mill of flour, whatever. But they were doing more than that. They were playing with the electricity. They were playing with the static, which is why there was the crack in the southern wall that we drilled through to find the conduit. That crack was from an arc of electricity over lots of time. We didn't know what electricity was. We wouldn't have recognized an electrical burn, an electrical arc. We didn't have transformers that have blown up and this was before current era knew of electricity. Although I do want to say that I believe the Templar and Masons, or whatever you want to call them, the Jesuit, they know of electricity. I believe the monks and the cardinals and the people of, those people knew of electricity, but your farmers didn't. Your blacksmith didn't. I bet you glass blowers knew of it, because you get static electricity when you're working with glass, just by when you're wiping them down or cleaning them, you get static electricity. You get that naturally, but I'm sure they didn't understand it. People with hay, when you're working there with a pitchfork, you get static electricity. In fact, sometimes the hay that static electricity would cause like explosions. These are just things that they knew of, but they also learned how to dissipate it, which means they knew of it because they knew how to dissipate it and what not to do. They knew not to smoke around the hay farm for the same reason, you know. But it's they knew of it a little bit, but again, it was poo-poo is just some weird thing. And what could you do with it back then? You didn't have a cell phone. You couldn't trickle charge a cell phone. Yeah, and you couldn't arc weld. People didn't even know what electricity was. So
I even saw that some people charge their phone with fruit.
yeah, you can charge if you get a real piece of copper and a real piece of nickel and you can do it with potato, you can do it with a lemon.
Yeah.
You know, all you have to do is make those electrons work in a pattern in a system.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Somebody does. A circuit, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
But we had no use for it because, you know, people didn't have electric toasters, so there was no use for it, and no one understood that you could electroplate coins otherwise, which is, I believe, one of the reasons why electricity has always been shunned, because if they understood how to play with it and harness it, people could have been counterfeiting coins for a really long time, which would have made the money changers very, very, very unhappy, because that was their bread and butter. And you mess with the money, you get bombed. Well, nowadays.
And nowadays, the money doesn't even represent the actual worth of the money, because it's all cheap brass.
Zeros and
they
ones.
stopped it. Yeah, back in the day, if you have a silver dollar before 1964, I have one here. And if you melt this dollar from 1964 and before dollars before that time period, and you would get the amount in weight, you get exactly that dollar back. So back in the day, all the money was the amount it was weighing. That's why
value.
The money had real value because it was made of a silver alloy, if I am correct. It's called an alloy, yeah. And they are even a very small pieces of gold coins back in the day, and that's why a lot of people also had coins in their jewelry back in the day, because if you have to go through customs, if you have had silver coins, they want to inspect how much amount you had. But if you dressed up like Mr. T almost with silver coins around your neck, they wouldn't investigate that, because your jewelry, they didn't look after the jewelry. Still, they don't. If you have a silver necklace, you can go through customs very easily. But if you have a silver watch and a silver bracelet and other silver things, a silver pen and a silver pendant, a silver tie clip, you can go to customs with a lot of silver.
Basically, to get it through customs, what you need to do is wear it.
If you wear it, then don't investigate. And if you have a bag full of silver coins, then they say, "Oh, what are you going to use that for? What's the purpose of the?" So that's also very interesting. That's why back in the day, a lot of people had silver.
Right, you wear your wealth.
Yeah,
that's why you want to have it actually in crypto, just on a USB stick. Somebody pulling $10,000 through the customs is going to be caught, but you with your $100 million on your USB stick in your crypto wallet, nothing is there.
And you have to be very careful to get with an USB stick through the customs, because they have now the devices to detect you, the newer ones. That is, I think it's a whole closed off box or something, and that can wipe your USB stick clean. It has happened with people. They took pictures. They had a USB stick in their pocket, and they went to that new scanning device, and it was wiped clean.
Yeah, if you're using like a Bitcoin thing, you can always email yourself the coin and leave it in your email.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
you have access. The only thing you need for your wallet is your password.
Right, or just leave it on an online wallet and just memorize your password and leave it on an online wallet, and then you can move to whatever country you want as long as you have access to the internet.
Mhm.
There are ways to play with these things, but I do agree that the money used to have value. If you went from Spain to Abagonga, and you got to Abagonga, and they're like, "Oh, look, it's silver." You know, we have, you know, we know it's silver, and we make cool jewelry out of it. We don't know what this queen thing is, and you know, we think she's kind of ugly, but you know, we'll melt it down and we can make some jewelry out of this because it's silver, and we know what silver is because, well,
you can weigh it. And even back in the day, some coins even had stamps on them how much the amount of silver was actually in the coin.
Right, but when you get to Abagonga,
written on the coin.
Yeah, but in Ungagunga, they don't know what 1 ounce is, or they don't know what 1/4 of a pound is, or you know, they just know.
But they could weigh it.
4 fish, 1 turkey, 1 ounce of this stuff, or one.
And also
that much
you
of this stuff is a horse.
And you also have those black stones. When you can, if you have a silver coin or a gold coin, and you have those black stones, you can push it and make a line with that silver coin. And you have a fluid, and if it dissolves in a kind of fluid, you can actually measure the amount of silver in the coin.
Yeah,
so if you have that device, it's very simple. It's fluid, 3 fluids with a black stone, and if you scratch your coin against it, you get a silver or gold stripe, and you dissolve it or not with a different kind of fluid. You can actually see the amount of silver that there is in a coin.
This is true, but your normal blacksmith wouldn't have that, but they would recognize a lump of silver.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know, you brought
also they could see if they melt it. The time of they could see that it becomes solid, and they can tell. Oh, with this type of heat, it starts to melt, so it's silver.
Yeah. That your blacksmiths and your jewelers would know that. You know, if they melt it, it melts really soon. They'll be like, "Oh, that's aluminum." You know.
Yeah.
But no, I agree.
And also they could now back in the day they couldn't do that, but nowadays you can even I don't know the word anymore. Well, it's not very important. You have other ways of telling it's gold or silver.
It would be.
Oh yeah, the weight, of course. The weight is different.
A lot of places, whether it had a cool pictures of a pope or a queen or an emperor on it, they would still recognize it as silver. Nowadays, it's a piece of paper. And if somebody honestly gave me like a half a dozen euros, or gave me
even the coins, you don't have the word. If you melt the coins down, you have a scrap of metal that doesn't.
You could use it. If you're a jeweler, you can make jewelry out of it. It has usefulness.
Yeah.
The piece of paper with a pyramid on the back of it has no usefulness if the guy down the street won't give you a fish or a piece of bread.
Sorry, guys, but I have to go. I have work tomorrow, and it's nearly 1 a.m. So, guys, have a good night, and see you guys soon. Okay.
Okay. See you soon, Willem.
Bye.
Bye, Will.
You know, a piece of paper.
Bye, Will. I can get back quick in time. My button wouldn't press, but bye, Will.
A piece of paper, if I'm in some other country, I don't think would get me anything. But a kind of cool, shiny thing, at least somebody would take, if nothing else, because it's a cool, shiny thing. It's not just a piece of paper. And that's, you know, like I said, somebody gives me €1. If somebody walks up to me right now and gives me €1, because I have no way to spend it, I would not accept it. But if somebody walk up to me with, I don't know.
And the metal they use for euros is worthless, almost.
Oh, you actually have euro coins? I didn't know that.
We have euro coins. Yeah, we have euro coins.
I
And they're
did.
made of of copper and a copper alloy.
I
And
thought euros were pieces of paper. I didn't
No.
even know it was a real euro coin.
oh,
See how
you have 1 cent. You have, just like in America, you have 1 cent euro that almost looks like a 1 cent in America. That the brownish copperish thing.
yeah, zinc.
Yeah, it's almost the same. The same. It almost
Copper's
looks
too
the same.
expensive.
Yeah.
Copper's too expensive. If it was
Zinc.
copper, it would be like 4 cents. People would buy them from the bank and melt them down and use them.
It's
Like-
it's meshing. It's called brass. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all brass. It's very cheap brass. And we have we have an also we have one Europe only. It's they per country they have a different kind of on the head side they have a different kind of picture. In Holland they have the king. In Germany they have the eagle, so it looks even more like a dollar. And in the other countries, I think in Ireland they have a harp on it. So you can recognize the different coins from different countries. Some people collect them. They want to collect because they also give out euro coins with old structures on them, so that people can collect them. But they're made of very cheap brass.
Right. Well, I'd rather collect a coin that has a cool drawing on it than I would a piece of paper.
Yeah. Yeah, because if your house burns down, the coins will still be there and your paper won't be.
This is probably true. I'll be right back. I have
Okay.
to visit the loo.
Yeah.
That's two breaks today. Artist, it's having to say online, I'm off to the loo.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you have to do.
People will know that Artist and Angel went to the loo.
Hundreds of people. Yeah. Well, that's live research. We even keep researching on the loo.
Yeah, Artist, you probably are on the computer on your something, looking up something.
Well, I'm thinking about stuff that Angel talked about. That I think, well, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. My mind never stops. I always think about interesting things, ancient structures, the flat Earth related things, the eclipse, everything I'm researching, but mainly old structures.
Yes, we know that that's one of your favourite subjects, isn't it, Artist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we can learn a lot.
Thank you so much for going off and doing all the research for us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I like to research those kind of things because it always was in my interest, those ancient monolithic sites.
Thanks for telling us that this thing that's been in my country in which we've sort of like looked up to is and on most things is fake, Stonehenge. Thanks for that one, Artist.
Yeah, and
bad.
You have a lot of other structures that look like Stonehenge. I think maybe there are almost 20 of them. There are a lot in the UK, and they're real. Most of them are real. And I think, like I showed before, that one with the cross in it, I think it's more beautiful than Stonehenge even to look at. It's a bigger scale. It has more stones. It is, and also it's set to the stars in the sky, so that's also very interesting.
I have a little tidbit. People will recognize its value when I show you, but it hits two of my little 10 points. But right here, this is 1/10 of an ounce of silver that's in the casting.
Put it up a little bit higher, Angel.
Well, I didn't want to do that quite yet.
Okay.
Because that shows, and I like the fact that it shows Building 7 there. But it's the two towers and Building 7. That's 1/10 of an ounce of silver.
Ooh.
And it rests upon 1 ounce of gold.
Cool.
Which
Yeah,
is like-
you have something of worth, and it also looks pretty.
Right. So it kind of when set up kind of sits like this, and when you lay it down, you know, it looks like that in its little casting, but
Wow,
it's
cool.
silver and gold, and it's also the 911 bit. And I only got this. I got it after I learned about Building 7, which is why when I saw it, I was like, why would they even cast it and show Building 7? When I found out it actually came from the Vatican.
Oh.
And a friend of mine got it while he was in Rome. So while they're in Rome, they'll actually show you Building 7. Everywhere else probably won't, because they wanted it to be out of sight, out of mind. But
what is the writing on that particular coin? Or does it say something in the writing? Because I want to...
It does. It says
very cool.
Every grief recedes with time, but we will never forget. Yeah, that's what it says. Every grief recedes with time. So, but when the person offered it to me, since it's an ounce of gold, I'm like, I know its value. It's an ounce of gold. I don't care about the pretty emblem, although it is 1 ounce of gold and 1/10 an ounce of silver. And just that alone, I use it as a representation to show people what silver and gold is worth. And then I point out to them, hey, you see this building here? That's Building 7.
Yeah.
Building 7. Do you know what Building 7 is? Let's start a whole nother discussion. First, let's talk about silver and gold, and then let's talk about Building 7.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh yeah, I've found it.
2 things in 1.
I found it one. I found one on the internet. Yeah. Cool.
What do
Hey,
they sell?
Angel, asking you back to like ancient structures and pyramids. Do you have anything in your possession like that's old or comes from a pyramid, or your favorite thing?
Old and my favorite thing.
That you
I
have
do.
with you? Like, do you have like, because we usually see your board and you're so into the pyramids.
Well, I have something that's old and is my favorite thing. I have a microphone which was made by Tesla, or at least was made by the Tesla Corporation, which was in time one of his things. And I guess he made microphones as well. I have no way to use it because it uses a really funky hookup. Like the old telephones were 3 plugs. The old microphones were. So I have no way to use it, and I don't want to use it because at this point, I don't know. It is made with Bakelite and stuff like that, so I don't even use it. But it is a Tesla microphone, and because one of my fans, I am a fan of Tesla. So when that came across my, when it was in my sight on my radar, I grabbed it because the price was right. I have zero use for it, but the fact that the guy at least drew the blueprints for it, like, it made me connect with it. So that's my thing that I like. But no, I have no rocks or anything from the Great Giza Pyramid. I have nothing of that nature.
The only thing I have is some fossilized things that are compressed together by other rocks, and it has a hole in the middle because there was the soft tissue. This is petra. It's almost like a I don't know the name. You can see it as petrified wood, only then fossils that are compressed together as a rock. That's the oldest thing I got, and I found it. I found it in Limburg in the Netherlands, where you have those old mining industries. And I found it in a lake, and I thought that was a strange rock with a perfect hole, almost a perfect hole in the middle. I thought I was in.
You found it in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I got mine because I I worked at a company, we liquidated companies. And we liquidated a museum that happened to be in LA that had old museums. Like I could have gotten a really old guitar that was, I don't even know who made it, but I didn't appreciate music until I learned about symmetrics, which we've discovered, we talked about, we have talked about. And I probably would have appreciated well, it wasn't really a guitar. It was a slightly different, but either way, I probably would have appreciated it more then. But at the time I saw the Tesla mic and I was like, I want that, you know, but, when you liquidate companies, you get to like pillage the booty before you put it to auction. So
Yeah, no, that's sometimes you are in luck with those things. Yeah.
I showed you guys. I have a.
Also, you can sometimes find cool things in secondhand stores. I also found some stones that were they were basically in a small container. The container was looking beautiful, and that was a makeup kit. And you have those things in a makeup kit to divide the spaces. And I want to give that as a present for my mom and then I bought it, but I was feeling very heavy. I thought this is heavy, but I thought it was beautiful. It was only €2. It's about $2. So I bought it for my mom for her birthday. And I got it back home, and I still thought it's way too heavy for actually the size of it. And then I lifted up the division part of the box, and under them were all gemstones. So sometimes you look. It was a sapphire, a small diamond, citrine, lapis, all those kind of stones.
I don't. There's a company out on this continent called Anna Lee, and they hand upholster figurines. Mm-hmm. And they hand paint them, and they do very good work. They're an artistic creation. Yeah. And my mom liked that. So at 1 year I went on eBay, and I at the time I had an unlimited budget. So I just bought anything that had the name Anna Lee on it. And I really only spent like $5, $10, $15 per figurine that I purchased. And I just had them all shipped to my mom for Christmas, you know, that pagan holiday. And a couple of them that I had bought for $5 and $10 wound up being like $100 and $200 figurines. So she's like under the impression that I'm like spending bazillions of dollars on her. And really, you know, somebody said, "Oh, I'm going to sell this little figurine that I bought, and I have, you know, I'll just sell it. You know, I'll put it up there for $9.99." And I'm like, "I'll buy it."
Yeah. Yes, if you have knowledge about certain.
I had no knowledge. I was just going with the name. Since I guess the company that makes them is actually in like Connecticut or something like that. It's on that side of the country. I'm in California, and it's on the other side of the country. So I'm kind of not privy to the knowledge of it. I don't really follow figurines. But she went to some signing thing, and she actually got the artist that did it to sign it, which increased its value even like more. So, but when she brought them there, they're like, "Oh, you know, I remember making that one like 30 years ago. Wow, I'll sign that for you. Wow, where did you get this?" Like, "I don't know. My son sent it to me." And some of them were like, you know, like I said, they were artistic pieces. And I was just, you know, people hard on their times, put it up on eBay, and I'm just snap, 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 snap.
I also collect those old German faces from East and West Germany from the 1960s and 70s. And some of them are, if you have a face before the Second World War, they're very expensive because all the bombing American did in Germany, a lot of ceramic faces broke. So there aren't many left from before the Second World War. So there are some, if you have a face before the Second World War from Germany, they are probably are around $200, $300. But the vases from the 60s and 70s from Germany, because most of them they are hand painted, some of them are even handmade, and they are very expensive if you buy them in a store that has the knowledge about them. But if you go to a second-hand shop, you can buy them for $1 sometimes. They're
Right.
cheap.
The
So
other
if
thing,
I'll go a lot to old flea markets and second-hand stores because you can find beautiful things for only a couple of dollars.
oh yeah, one of my exes used to love to shop at Salvation Armies, and she got me a leather jacket for like under $10. That like was a $200 leather jacket. But
Yeah.
you catch the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
But one of the other things I was thinking that I have that I really like in Coven is that generator that they used to use for the telegraph to like charge the wire so they could send the signals.
Oh, the really old ones, yeah.
Yeah, that I want to use as part of my pyramid project when I make a model is to use that to do the electrolysis so that, like I said, I believe I'd mentioned to you guys, when a child comes there, they can be part of the system and they can see how energy is put into the system, and that separates the water. And then when they separate the water, everything else comes to play. It is a big system. And they, I'm one of those hands-on type of people. I used to love to go. There was a place in Pennsylvania, the Edison Museum. I think it was, no, the Benjamin Franklin Museum. That's what they called it. They had an Edison Museum as well. And out here they have one that's called the Exploratorium in San Francisco. But either way, they let you do things where you play with static electricity and you play when you mix the lights. You have 3 beams of light and you can mix the light, and they show you how wavelength. Well, they don't tell you about wavelengths and how they mix. But when a child plays with it and you put the blue and you took the green and you put them together and you get yellow, and you take the blue and you take the red, you put them together, you get purple, and you can see it and play with it and do it on your own. It makes it easier when you sit down in school and the teacher tells you, well, this wavelength and this wavelength comes to do this, and say, like, oh yeah, I did that once and I actually witnessed it myself. It puts it more into where it's not just the earth is round and you have to believe me because we have these pictures that we made.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Personal science can only be built on empirical level. You need to make things your own, otherwise you won't understand anything.
Which is kind of like why I like the example I was talking about, going to the beach with the 3 pictures. This is reality. This is through a telescope. This is through binoculars. And you could, hey, how did that boat show up here when it should be gone? I want to plant that seed. I want people to see it for themselves, because once you see it, a teacher, I have had people walk up to me and tell me, but blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I was there. I saw it. I witnessed it. I've been arrested. And the police chief sat there and told me a story that was like, well, this is really what happened. I'm like, I was there. I was the guy with the cuffs on my hand. I know what happened. Oh, well, they love to tell you their story because that's what they were told. That's their vision. And even though you're there and reality is different, I want people to see reality. So when somebody says, well, this is what happens, the boat goes over the hill and then you can't see it anymore, blah, blah, blah. No, I went to the beach and this crazy guy had a telescope and I could still see the boat. How could I still see the boat? It gives them an irritation that they can't. It's that seed. It's that seed that there's something wrong. The crack in the wall, the shoes under the curtain. You understand the analogy. I'm just beating that horse.
Yeah, I understand.
But I like planting the seeds, and it's on everything.
Me too.
I love when I walk up to somebody and I ask them, I go to any bank and I'm like, can you cash a check? Yeah, are you sure you have enough cash? And then they start giving me the Federal Reserve notes, and I'm like, no, I want cash. I want those coins over there. I want it all. Oh, we don't have those anymore. well, you said you could cash it. I'm paying to cash it. And I tell them about bait and switch, in here in the States, in any state in the union, if you say it's, I know I'm backtracking here, but they used to give out toasters and stuff when you opened a savings account. But then they gave out a coupon good for a toaster. But then when you went to the store, sometimes they didn't have that toaster in stock, so they'd try to upsell you. So they said, no, you can't do that. You can't play that game. Well, the banks to this very day are playing that game when they tell you they're going to charge you to cash a check, but yet they'll give you the Federal Reserve notes, not the cash, because they often don't have the cash. And the whole reason they got away with charging the fee to cash the check is because of the inconvenience of keeping the cash on hand. So, which is why they charge merchants.
If everybody went to the bank and collect their month's pay,
well,
there will be a problem because they don't have that.
This is true. But on top of that, when you go there and you ask for like a couple of rolls of quarters and a couple of rolls of nickels and a couple of rolls of pennies for your cash drawer, they charge you a fee for that, for getting coins, which is the same notation they had, or the same mentality they pushed for why they charge a fee for when you go there to cash your check. But they don't give you cash anymore. They give you the promissory notes. They give you the paper money. So they're not even giving you the cash. And they don't have any problem keeping paper money. Paper money is no problem. The reason they said they want to charge a fee is because the inconvenience of maintaining the coin money. But they don't give you the coin money. So you go in there and it's a bait and switch. It's like, yeah, we're going to give you the toaster, but instead we're going to give you a coupon that says it's good for a toaster. But the tellers don't even understand what it is, because they don't understand the difference between money and cash and debt. They don't understand anything. They're just worker bees. And that's what really why I said I like to plant seeds, and I try to tell them, black and white. Yeah, I'll take a couple of funny money Federal Reserve notes, but I'd like most of it in cash. Do you have cash? Oh yeah, we got plenty of cash. All right, give me a couple of rolls of singles. Oh, you want coins? Well, yeah. What other type of cash is there? It's cold, hard cash. You call these pieces of paper cold and hard? No, this coin is cold and hard. Here, let me throw it at you. It's they don't understand until you let it sink in. Cold, hard cash. There's a reason they call it cold, hard cash. And then they say, oh, wow, it plants that seed, because until somebody shows you the crack in the mirror, until somebody shows you the shoes under the curtain, I mean, you're in this la la land. You just go along to get along. But I almost don't blame them, because I was that person. I didn't care until early 2000s. I knew there was an issue, but I never really realized what it was. It was Building 7 that woke me up. It was Building 7 that was the clincher, and from there that started all my other rabbit holes. I knew. Well,
the thing that woke me up was still is that movie They Live.
I saw They Live after I understood Building 7. I saw They Live after
They Live. I watched it on. It was very late at night.
Yeah, you were telling me that it was one of the ones that they played during the break-in, which I think I know some people who were involved in that.
It was a pirate channel who broke into MTV, and then they showed the movie They Lived, and I thought, well, this is interesting, because back in the day I liked that show wrestling with Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan, and I thought, hey, Roddy Piper is dead, and I was, I believe, about 15 years old. And I thought, well, that's cool. I'm going to watch a movie with Roddy Piper in it.
So the character recognition got you to stay and watch it.
Yeah.
That's at least that worked. But
yeah, that worked. That's probably why John Carpenter picked Roddy Piper, because he has an open mind, Roddy Piper. You can also see that when he was on the Alex Jones show.
Yeah, because of that movie.
Because of that movie. So it was Roddy Pipe is basically a smart man because
of that movie.
also because of
His character in that movie woke him up. He said that during the interview, but
yeah,
he
indeed.
It's because I believe because of that event is part of the reason we went with digital television.
Yeah.
Because one of the things in the 90s, I worked at a company called Radio Shack. It was a big company. Now they went bankrupt, but
even here in Europe, I know that name.
Yeah, because they were big. Tandy was a big company. It was a burning star.
On the Sky Channel back in the day, we had Sky Channel, and there were commercials of the Radio Shack.
But one thing that we did at my store, my manager was a ham radio operator, so we got ingenuitive, and we took out of the back of a normal VCR, we hooked up a pair of rabbit ear antennas, but between the back of the VCR and the rabbit ear antennas, we put a 20 dB amplifier. And what this did is it amplified that signal coming out of the VCR, and then we could put a TV on a stack of stuff only plugged in. In fact, it was battery operated. We didn't even have to plug it in, and we turned to channel 3 or channel 4, and we'd be able to watch what was coming out of the VCR.
Yeah.
So we could put a TV on a dolly outside of the store plugged in on an extension cord and be playing a movie to get people's attention. And they're like, how do you do that? And it's because we were doing our own pirate radio television from in the store.
Cool.
And I use that same technology at my house. Radio Shack, we sold something that transmitted UHF channel 84, 82, and 80. So we would do that. Plus you had channel 3 and channel 4 from your VCRs. I'd transmit all 5 channels, and any TV in my house, because at those days we had UHF, I could watch whatever I wanted, or whether I wanted to watch VCR 1, VCR 2, VCR 3, VCR 4, VCR 5. And at the time, I could have 5 movies. I don't know why, I'm only one person, but 2 or 3 people in my house, we could be watching different things on different channels, all being broadcast. My neighbors could be watching it. In fact, sometimes we would. I would broadcast a movie like They Live, only I used to do the Terminator a lot more, or The Running Man. The Running Man also is on that same note, because in The Running Man, they show something which up until recently we didn't really see on TV, which is where they would take, in The Running Man, they take an event, a wording in it, so that the person says, I don't want to shoot on an unarmed, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, I don't want to shoot on unarmed people. And instead, they warp it to say, I don't want to shoot, and they change and alter it so that the exact verbiage he says is used against him because they cut certain things and append certain things. Or he says, they're unarmed. Okay, I shoot now, after they told him to. It shows you how they can alter reality by editing.
Yep.
And it puts it in your face, and that's a great movie to show that. And again, I would show those movies.
That's why a lot of live TV shows have a delay of about
8 seconds,
2 minutes sometimes. Yeah.
Well, it could be more.
So they can edit.
It's mandatory 8 seconds, and they started doing that because of the guy here in LA that torched himself on the high rises.
Well, they tell you it's 8 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it could be more. It can always be more, but it's a mandatory 8 seconds because the guy on a high rise a decade or so ago, burnt himself while he was sitting in a car. And because he was live on TV, too many people saw it. And they said, oh, we can't have that. We need time to hit the black button so people don't see the nose of the airplane come out of the other side of the Twin Towers and stuff like that.
That's a great one.
That happened. Whoop, fade to black.
Yeah.
It wasn't even fade. It was whoop, black.
Right. Yeah.
But it's when you know of these things, it makes it a lot easier to see it. It's kind of like funny, but it's not. But until you've seen it, until you've realized it, until you're awake to it, if you just walk up to somebody and say, "Hey, you notice how when the Pinocchio's nose come out, it just cuts to black?" Oh yeah, it must have been like a sunspot. Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. That's great.
But it's amazing the world we live in. But as I was saying, it's you're working with people that are asleep, that are part of the matrix. So you kind of have to walk on eggshells, and you have to drop hints, and you have to wait for people to say things, and you have to drop seeds. I like to drop a seed and see how people respond.
I do the same.
If they respond one way, you know they're asleep.
Yep.
You can let that seed ferment, or you could push it, depending on the situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or you could walk away. You know.
Yeah. But you always try to plant seeds. Always do that. But you never know that people after a certain time of period they wake up. Sometimes it takes a couple of days for people to wake up.
I got a guy I've been working on. It's 2017 now. I've been working on him. I woke up in like 07. It was honestly Loose Change, the movie that kind of was my crack in the eggshell. And it was Building 7. I could tell you the scene. I could tell you I almost vomited when I saw it. But they show a video I had seen on TV. It's the exact same video, but it's the way it's worded, the wording behind it that was different. They show South Tower fall, North Tower fall. And then they put Building 7 next to I think it's the Sands or Sahara or something like that. And they show them fall side by side. And I always thought when the guy says it, like, it looks nothing like controlled demolition. They were showing this one, which explodes, this one, which explodes, and then these two, which fall. I never knew that this one was Building 7. They never said, oh, by the way, this building that they're comparing with this one, this one fell on September 11th. This one fell controlled demolition. I always thought they were comparing these two buildings with these two buildings. And because of that, I never saw I was comparing apples and oranges, not apples and apples. You know, and it.
Later on, you saw the truth.
Well, it was.
That's why I put my first videos that I put online. If you go to my channel and you watch the oldest movie, oldest video I made. The oldest one is They Live. I posted it about 6 years ago because I thought it was making me up. I edited a bit. It was the first YouTube video I made. That was parts of They Live in them. I start off with Jack Nicholson. That in that movie that he says, "You want answers? I want answers. You want the truth? You can handle the truth." Then I played.
I've used that.
Yeah, I used, and then I played some parts of the video of the movie They Live. And that was my first YouTube movie. To put it out there as soon as possible. When I got a computer that could was fast enough to put things on YouTube, I did it instantly. It was because I thought that was very important then, 6 years ago.
It is I think that's a great movie. That's a great analogy, and once people see it, they can relate to it. It's a lot easier. That and The Matrix, all of them. But I still have to work with people that are asleep, so I have to interact with them when I'm at the store. I have to work with them. I had somebody. I always pay because I go to the bank, and because I always make them give me all the cash they have. I have lots of dollar coins. So I was at the grocery store and I'm paying with dollar coins, and the guy's like, oh, "Can I buy some of them?" And I'm like, "Sure. How many you want?" I got a couple of rolls in the car. He's like, "Oh, I just want like 5 or 10." I'm like, "Sure, 10. Here you go. You know, use them or lose them because we're not going to have them anymore. It's going to be paper and then it's going to be digital." But the more you can use the coin, the more the banks have to have it. And I like to piss off the managers. I'm like, look. I came here to cash a check. You guys don't have any cash. Well, we don't carry those things anymore. We turn them all in. I'm like, well, I want cash. I am a customer. I am here. I'm here to cash a check. Well, you have to tell us in advance. I'm telling you now. I will be here in 2 weeks. I want cash.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have to give it.
They're supposed to. And then
Yeah.
I'll come in like 2 weeks later and I have the same talk with the same, oh, okay, I'm sorry, we forgot to order it. Then I'll come in 4 weeks later. Well, we've had it for 2 weeks for you. Well, you should have it for 2 weeks for everybody. You're supposed to maintain it within the building. That's why you charge for cashing a check.
Yeah.
You know, that you have to maintain it. That's your part of the bargain.
And that's all. Also, when people say, "I just realized that," you have to have real eyes to realize.
That's a good. Never looked at that one. No.
Yeah, I got it from a. It's not mine thing. I got it from a friend of mine. He always tells about very interesting things on his channel. It's Barnon 11970.
Realize.
Yeah, and he's a great guy, and he also I talk with him on the Facebook sometimes, and has a lot of inspiring videos. He also talks in great detail about sun gazing. So I will put a link in the description for you in the group chat, so you can check out his channel, Angel.
Okay.
It's something that you will find very interesting. His channel. And also put in my first video on YouTube for fun. Yeah, because I wanted to wake up the people for a long time. And I'm glad that YouTube.
Yeah, we all do our bit. We all do our bit, don't we?
Yeah, indeed. That's a great thing.
Part of this puzzle of information, and we can't all do the same thing, can we? I can't do what Angel does, and I can't do what you do. I do something different. Like Ceres does something different. Richard does something different. We all do our bit.
Well, it depends on what your mindset is, but I really believe that the dollars we use, the money we use, the monetary form of exchange that we're passing around is fiat currency. And most everyone that I'm talking to here, we all use fiat currency, which is pieces of paper that represent what used to be money. And I try to make people, especially the bank tellers, realize that. And I have some, when I walk up, because I do this always, and I've been doing it for the past 4 or 5 years. I've been pissing off bank tellers for the past 4 or 5 years. That when I walk up, they're like, I've got some money for you. Come on over here. And I go over and they already have like, $50 worth of dollars there. And I'm like, all right, cool, thank you. And I'm like, I'm taking all your cash. So just remember, you can't charge anybody for the rest of the weekend to cash a check. And they're like, oh, that's funny. I'm like, no, I'm being serious. But at least I've planted a seed where they have some knowledge, because they deal with that crazy guy who always asks for the cash. And because they deal with that crazy guy who always asks for the cash, at least it's on their radar. And that's what I'm talking about. It wouldn't be on their radar otherwise. And I'd like, maybe sometime it'll click, but at least it's there. At least they have the knowledge that there was a map 1,000 years ago that shows a flat Earth and other lands potentially outside of it. That at least they have the knowledge that you can navigate the oceans using the stars, and we have been for several centuries, and those stars aren't moving very much. It's irritations to the globe model. It's irritations to the fiat currency. It's irritations to our governmental teaching that I'm trying to do. I want people to realize that we're in a zoo. And until you realize you're in a zoo, until you realize you're in a cave, until you realize you're in a fictitious world.
When you have realize, You said realized a couple of times now.
Yeah. Well, now, eventually you will see it when you see all the cracks, or at least you'll be willing to understand it when somebody tells you that, like, you're being lied to.
Oh, yeah.
There's more to it. Wake up, get out of it. You know.
You have to have realized that you have been lied to.
I'm almost afraid the next time I go to court, because I also understand at least how my court system works a lot more than I did half a decade ago. And I'm almost...
Oh, the whole legalese language.
Right. I'm almost to a point
for
where
English in America with my own, it's so different in language as well. It's hard to find out what actually that particular language is in legalese, what they use.
Yeah. Well, also my friend Barn on 11970 that I put in a group chat had an almost, I think, a 2-hour video explaining legalese, and that you have to get the Black Law Dictionary, because in the Black Law Dictionary, before a certain time, not the newer ones, the older ones, I think until the 6th edition, then it's a good Black Law Dictionary, because they explain the words and what the words mean. So if you want to learn legalese, get a Black Law Dictionary and study that, and then you will understand all those terms of legalese and what words actually mean. And if you check it out, my friend has a 2-hour video about it.
There is a big difference between what words mean on the court and outside of the court.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Black Dictionary for the English words, but then translate it back to your own language.
That's what I mean, on the court and off the court.
Every county has some sort of Black Law Dictionary you can investigate. It's called the different names, of course, but every county has a kind of Black Law Dictionary, because they have to have that, so you can study that if you want to learn to be an advocate and that sort of a judge.
Yeah, learn to cut out the middleman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. I will put it also in the chat that video of about the Black Law, by the law and you. So
is that to go out to the chat then?
Yeah, I will also put it in the chat.
Once I had one done by the Social Security, claiming me to be a terrorist. Well, Article A, but Article B was my defense. That's the exception rule.
No.
If you ask me, you are in a...
Hello? Ceres, you mute yourself. Yeah, you muted yourself.
I have a lot of feedback at the moment.
I hear it's all right.
You're echoing and you're breaking up, or it's my computer, I don't know.
Almost everyone sounds digitized.
Do I also sound digitized, Angel, or not?
No, right now you sound great, but you started to be good.
Okay.
Before that, everyone sounded like...
Yeah, that's what I got also.
I didn't hear that.
Hear a word. I couldn't hear a word.
Your side was... You can't hear yourself at the moment. But I guess it's over.
It's all good now. Everyone's good.
Yeah. We always have a technical problem at the Sun and Moon rooms.
Oh yes, there's always a technical problem. Somebody's got something.
It wasn't me. I want to see a blood test. I didn't do anything.
Actually, we'll blame you. We'll blame you, Angel. Ceres, what were you just about to say, or are you showing us something there in your picture?
Oh yeah, talking about the map.
Yeah.
I'm rendering the elevation with the magnetical data as a movie to actually see a little bit of what it presents. Trying to figure out how you can look at it in the best way and actually see what's happening there. In a sense, I've only a lot of positions with the magnetical direction in a certain what is a Tesla value, and I'm not sure what to do with it yet, but so far I can use the three-dimensional direction and make kind of triangles pointing into the direction, and then a complete setup from 0 to 1,000 kilometers high. And I've taken up the pixel size of the map as the pixel positions of the height as steps between the 1,000 miles. So to get more detail in higher levels. In that sense.
And that includes that is covering all your work, though, isn't it? The whole of your map is in that.
Yeah, but I've got on level 7, I think. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on my backup PC. My machine froze.
Well, I'm glad you're back. Is there anything you want to talk about today? I mean, I know you've been talking and you've been giving your opinions, but is there anything on the pyramids or anything like that you want to mention, Angel?
Not specifically, unless somebody wanted to go over the model, but I've been focusing on the model. I really appreciate Aries the other 2-3 weeks ago, was it more like 4 or 5 weeks ago, showed me that hole from the side that the more I look at it, looks like it does line up with the internal guts where there's a shaft that goes up into the body of the pyramid. And I think it's an extraction point for whatever it is that they were harvesting or making in that pyramid. But exactly what that is, I'd like physical science to tell us, which is why I'd like to either model it or make it or, something like that. Or at least get ideas out there what it is or it isn't. I mean, it's not going to be like gold. They weren't making lead or something like that. But they may have been making hydrogen, something lighter than hydrogen, or something heavier than water, aka heavy water. So depends on really which way the reaction goes, whether it was up or down from water, which would be hydrogen, or it could even be helium, honestly. Nature does generate helium, and there are ways to make helium, usually by making what's called tritium, and then it breaks down into helium. But there are ways in a lab that we can make helium, and if we can make helium in a lab, then we can make helium. Then they could make helium because they were using a lab. I mean, I really think they were doing something. That's all I gotta say. And what it is, I'd like to find out. And it ain't no tomb. That's my. I'm sticking with that.
No, not tombs.
I've grown past the tomb part so far, and on such a, knowing more and more that the tomb is just so far out of it. It's like if somebody walked up to me and said, 2 planes took down 3 buildings in New York, I'd have to slap them. I'm like, I don't even think the planes had anything to do with the buildings coming down. They were just,
No, they didn't.
They were part of the show. They were the cute girls on the side that play with the bunny rabbit while the magician is hiding the knife for taking the legs or whatever the magician's in the middle of doing. But
They may not have even been there though.
Yeah, I you know, when we look at what can be done with real-time animations and what NASA's been playing with, I do also believe that they could be a simulation and or a cover-up. They could have been masking a projectile, the same way that when our NASA engineers are on the high wires going behind it, there's supposed to be a layer that covers them over so they look like they're floating. On that same level, the planes could have been masking a projectile, but I also am not even sure that a projectile was necessary at all. I think it could have all been masking because there was 2 channels that were actually independent in recording and don't show any planes at all. They don't even show the orb, which I think the orb may have been concealing something that they didn't want to see, like maybe an ED1 or, sorry, an E4B, not an ED1. I was thinking the electric car there for a second. You know what the E4B is? It's the 747 with the bubble on the back. That's the, they basically are NORAD in an airplane. NORAD is North American Rocket Defense or something like that. Radar Defense. I don't know what NORAD stands for, but it's Cheyenne Mountain in an airplane. And you know, I know it did happen. I know it did happen. The buildings fell, or were knocked down, blown up, more to the point. And I know what didn't happen is that planes weren't the catalyst for them falling. Planes could have been the catalyst for the explosions, but the explosions were not the catalyst for them falling, because they could have had many explosions and they'd still be standing. Perfect example is the building that burnt, the Madrid building that burnt for like 24 plus hours and nothing happened to it. So that's all I gotta say. It's really, a lot of everything is fake. So you just gotta look between the cracks. You gotta be open-minded to pay attention to what is within reality and what can be dismissed, and use the Occam's razor to come to a conclusion. And no matter what it is, no matter how much you like it, accept it as a very possible possibility. And until something more possible comes up, work within what is possible and ignore
There was a hurricane outside New York on 9/11.
Right, they don't, because a lot of people aren't looking at everything, and because I'm a bigger everything person than just the 9/11 truther, which just that word itself. If someone's a truther, what's the antithesis to that? A liar. So I'm a truther, you're a liar. Just think about that for half a second there. But it's amazing that the whole scenario is, you have to really think for yourself, and you have to weed out what is and could be false. And knowing the technology that exists, knowing what NASA does, luckily, as Bob, it was Bob, right, that you had on 2-3 days ago, he's the one that did the really cool video that really documents the NASA guys on the wires behind him, points out that within half a decade, you won't be able to tell the difference. They're gonna make this stuff so realistic that you won't be able to tell the difference. In movies nowadays, they make it so you really think the person is there. I saw the newest Star Wars, the Rogue One, and it almost looks like Princess Leia, and it almost looks like that other guy. Both of them, well, Princess Leia wasn't actually, she died after it, but she wasn't in the movie. She wasn't the actress. It was right out of the movie Lookers, which is another good movie. Have you seen that, artist? Lookers? I'll wait until you unmute later, but it's a movie. Have you seen it? Do you know what which okay, well, look up the movie Lookers. It's a movie where they use what we have now today. Didn't exist at the time the movie was made. The concept did, obviously, but it uses the full body scanners, and they scanned actresses, and then they digitally put them into commercials and stuff. Lookers, yeah, just like you spelled it, lookers. Like and they scan them into their 3D wise, and they put them into commercials, and they make it so they don't actually have to do anything except for collect the royalty checks.
Yeah.
And then they bump them off.
I was getting something to drink. I've also put it in the group chat. But I know, Lucas, yeah, they used that technology. Even they used it on the stage that Michael Jackson was dancing with somebody else and singing along. And they also did it when a person couldn't get to a certain promotion of a certain kind of thing on a theater. They also made a 3D hologram of him, so he can talk to the crowd, and he could he could stay at home and talk to the crowd miles away.
The technology didn't exist 2 decades ago when that movie came out. I think that movie was like mid-90s.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's totally doable.
Well,
I found also one in 1981.
It's also a bit like
93 and 81.
Yeah. It's also a little bit like surrogates. That you could get a surrogate body that works for you, and you plug yourself online.
Right.
And the surrogate body does your work. It was with, I think it was with that actor who also was in Moonlighting, in that series Moonlighting. I always forget his name.
Bruce Willis.
Yeah. Yep. And also an interesting movie is what I always, I already give you, I think the name of the movie is The Only Mountain from 1978. You have to really watch that one because it's an old movie, but it talks about corruption, the banking system, everything, even more. It has almost. It talks about Freemasonry and hiding signs in plain sight.
Well, it's. I think the more people that understand what Masonry is, and the fact that it is like a hidden language in plain sight. It's the handshake. It's how they stand there. It's how they hold their arm. It's the whole bit is.
And they often use Pythagorean numerology. Yeah. When the A is 1, the D is 1, the S is 1, the B is 2, the K is 2, the T is 2. They also use that a lot.
Then you can, whether or not you believe it, you can see it. I call it kind of like how Roman numerals. Yeah. You don't have to know how to read them. You just know when you see them, you say, oh, that's a number. I don't remember what the number is, a couple of X's, a couple of V's, a couple of I's. I could figure it out if I wanted to, but I know it's a number. Like Morse code. You see it. Even if they translate the letters a little bit, you can recognize it as a pattern. You see it as Morse code. And kind of once, whether or not the whole, and this is kind of digging in my ribs right now, but if Stonehenge was manipulated, it still fits the code, which is kind of what is scary, which tells me that these people knew that there's kind of the people.
Well, the druids that every year they do their ceremonial on Stonehenge, the druids, so they have the knowledge.
Right. So
Stonehenge is actually used for. So if you are probably one of those druids, you know when it was built, why it was built. Because those druids have a gathering there every year, and they do their spiritual stuff and all kinds of rituals.
I wonder if
They know the real truth.
In their history, in their taught stuff, in their, teachings, are they taught the Earth is flat? Are they? They can't be taught we're on a globe. They have.
Well, some Freemasons know that the Earth is flat. Yep. That's all I'm going to say.
The Druids, if they're making a rock effigy, I'll call it an effigy. If they're making a rock sculpture, and it lines up with the stars, then they can't think we're on a globe, because then the math wouldn't work. The math doesn't work on a globe. The stars aren't going to be the same spot because we're moving 16 bazillion miles around in circles and on a globe. So they can't think we're on a globe. They're smarter than that.
They probably know. They all already got it figured out how it works, but they're not telling us.
See, they live in the Matrix too. They walk among.
They live in the Matrix too, but they have the knowledge, knowing what certain things are put in place, so that the people are.
I tell you,
it
kills me when I go to a grocery store and I'm just there to pick up a couple of apples and strawberries or some vanilla extract or something like that. And I see these people with all this nasty stuff in their grocery cart. Don't eat that. Are you crazy?
You're gonna die. You get And sometimes, sometimes when people are sick. In my surroundings that I know, and sometimes they have an ailment. I don't know. Suddenly I went sick, and then always, what did you eat the last couple of weeks? Most of the time they ate garbage, or they ate a lot of pizza. Yo, was very busy this week. I ate a lot of pizza. I said that's why you became sick. And then do you still have a box? Because they are lying in the bed and they don't have. They are sick of the television because they are watching a couple of days of television. You wanted something else. Then I put. Do you still have some pizza box? Yeah, it's in the garbage over there. I put it out, put it in front of that guy, and I wrote all the things. And I put the smartphone and I typed all those things, what they really are. I said that's why you're sick. Then he opened his. Then he awake, and I thought, well, I eat garbage all the time. Yeah, he said that's why you are sick. Often I haven't been sick for about 10 years now, because I eat very healthy and I take care of my body and I do a regular exercise outside. And I also ground myself. I go to the forest, I take off my shoes, I sit down on a stone or something else, and I ground myself, and then I feel the energy coming back in my body.
Yeah, silver water is good as well.
Yeah.
Silver water, EMPs.
And the sun gazing also helps, but some people are a little bit scared to do that.
You know, I'm considering toying with that myself.
And you have to, if you want to do it, if the sun sets, you have to actually measure when the sun sets, and then you start with when the sun is down on the horizon. You have to do the last
15 minutes.
No, last 5 seconds of the sun setting. You start with 5 minutes. And then of the sunset. Then you put it up to 10, 15, but start with 5. Because different people have a different kind of sensitive in them. So if you start with 10...
don't forget to earth as well.
Yeah, you have also have to take off your shoes and stand in the sand. Or on earth. Always.
Honestly, I should have thought of that myself, but that's good to know, because that's part of what I do.
And also you can do that in meditation in the woods. Take off your shoes, put your feet on the dirt, and start meditating, and then you already feel the energy coming back in your body. But you have to do it for about half an hour. Longer is better, of course. But
Yeah, you
also
need those negative ions from the ground. You need them for your body. They're really good for you. Get your shoes and socks off and
Because-
stand on the ground for half an hour a day.
At
away.
least, because all the animals don't wear shoes. There's not one animal that is wearing shoes. It's stupid, basically. Well, we have to wear them because there's glass all around and garbage, but that's upon ourselves.
Yeah, usually of our own pudding there.
And also, those shoes are made of some kind of rubber, so it isolates the energy flow of yourself.
We don't use leather-soled shoes anymore.
If you use leather-soled shoes, it would be far better than all those plastic or
Sandal.
rubber ones. Sandals.
Leather.
Yeah, it was
shoes
it was
all right.
great when I talked about this out. Chris put up his feet, and he was barefooted in his house. Yeah,
You can wear
Also, yeah.
You can wear leather shoes. You know, let the bottoms as long as they're not plastic.
No,
What have they done? They've got us in plastic shoes.
yeah. Plastic
Leather
shoes, plastic
Get through.
clothing. Because if you look at some clothing labels, there's always be aware of what you wear, because it's on your skin. If you wear a lot of clothes with plastics in them, it's also very bad for your health. So wear cotton or wool.
2 or 3,
Silk.
maybe 4 years ago here in California, they had a huge campaign for breast awareness or breast cancer awareness.
Yeah.
And they had these bracelets that were rubberish. And I say rubberish because they weren't made from rubber from the rubber tree. They're made from rubber from petroleums.
Yeah.
But anyway, they had these things that said, "I love boobies." And like all the kids were wearing them. And within this particular bracelet was bisphenol A, BPA. Which
that they put in inside of tin cans.
yeah, same exact thing, which is a known carcinogen. So they have all these high school kids that pay a donation to get these bracelets that are a known carcinogen.
Yep. They're also inside of a lot of tin cans. That's why I always buy my food in glass jars. And also my tomato ketchup in a glass jar. Because it's great that in Germany a lot of products you can also purchase in glass jars still. Also water in glass jars.
Could I just say, guys, that we've been going for nearly 4 hours now. Do you want to carry on for a little?
Take it back. I said, no, you can't. Take
Pardon?
it back.
He's just
Sorry, what did Angel say? I didn't hear.
he
Sorry,
he
Angel.
was kidding you around.
You
Aw.
said, can I just say blah, blah, blah? And I said, no, you can't.
Oh,
Take it back.
Oh. We've been going for nearly 4 hours now. Do you think it's annoying when so many people are watching, but we've been going for nearly 4 hours. Do you think that's enough, guys?
As you wish.
Yeah.
And,
Well, 4 hours is also a great... because otherwise the hangout will be very long to re-watch.
Yeah, and I also got to press that stop button. I just hope it doesn't. Angel, last night I pressed the button to stop it, and it said not initialized. And of course, we were still talking. So I thought, oh, we're still live. And then I had to press it 3 more times, and then eventually it stopped the actual hangout for us. But it left the chat room, and it left this hangout, and the whole thing going for 24 hours. And it didn't
I put
render
in
until.
late at night. I also put in some couple of things. The hangout is still live. What? After
They
4
love you.
hours?
They want you there.
Yeah, some people stayed and chat in the chat for a longer time of period.
Yeah, there was
because
loads
the
of
chat was
coffee.
still working. We had whole discussions in the chat.
Yeah. Angel, will you come back next week?
No problem.
Yeah, great.
It's always a pleasure having you on the panel. Right, I'm coming back now. I always turn my camera off for bandwidth, but we're coming back for the Flat Earth hug. Ceres, Patricia, Richard, you've got to do the hug. You probably, oh, my hair's sticking up and looking stupid. But anyway, there's Patricia. Yay! Thank you to everybody for watching. We're back tomorrow, 9 o'clock UK time. So see everybody tomorrow, and thank you for a great hangout. It was a very bouncy, happy hangout, and I think everybody enjoyed themselves. So thank you very much, Angel, Artist, Ceres, Patricia, Richard, Will, isn't it? That's who on the hangout. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.
Love you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Tomorrow.